Alright, hello, fine friends on this wonderful, frigid Thursday night in December.
If anyone actually exists, because
right?
the count's always wrong.
Exactly. And there's a couple of frame drops there. Let me turn off some other shit. Like Dropbox. Probably should turn off Dropbox.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna need that.
Can you bring up, hi everyone. Can you bring up Rankle for me?
Sure. Jayberry is still deck building, so...
I'm almost done. I'm literally almost done.
So she says.
I just wanted to... We're going to talk about Rankle for a second.
You trying to put it in a deck?
It's already in the deck, but it's the Japanese card, so I can't read it.
So you don't know actually what it does?
So can you help me?
Oh, that's funny. It's there. There's Rankle.
Common damage to players. Player discards a card. Draws a card.
Yeah.
Each play.
Rankle's awful.
Yeah.
I mean, and you don't have to have it trigger. You could just... You don't have to have... You could choose none of them.
It's true.
You don't have to do combat damage.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, it has to deal combat damage.
Well, I mean, you cannot attack with it.
Yeah.
I could do that, but maybe you could shut up and let me
Banshee's
attack you with
Banshee.
it.
Hey,
Why
Banshee.
does that seem smaller than normal?
I don't know.
It's really small. I can't even read that.
Here, I'll turn it up. Let's see.
Can you make the text bigger?
I will make the text bigger. Banshee, we're making your text bigger.
Because we can't read you, because it's so small.
Ta-da-ta-da.
But you're not small. You're awesome. You're larger than
Okay,
life.
that's better.
That's way better.
Yeah.
There we go. And it did. I made it bigger, and it just went smaller again.
Well, it went bigger, pretty
Did
big.
you actually save it?
Yeah.
Do it again.
Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
Do it again. Do it again.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah. No, I did. There you go. So it's at 110%.
Do it again.
Let's do it 120%.
Yes. Do it.
Okay.
That's way better.
Stay.
So let's hope it
Hopefully it'll
stays.
stay that way.
Alright.
Yay.
Okay.
There we go. So we're going to start with a 60 tonight while we wait for Val to get here, because NPC has just decided to update a wolf deck. So she wants to test out her 60-card wolf deck.
Okay.
Jayberry, are you playing with us?
Yes. Give
Okay.
me 1 minute.
To put your deck away?
In the meantime, why don't you talk about
What's coming up in the future?
Yeah.
So once
our experiences at Commander Fest.
oh yeah,
our first
you
one.
will note Command Fest the playmat. So we were at
Yes.
Command Fest DC this weekend. We did. I mean, in addition to having a lot of fun playing Magic the Gathering, we also, our production team did a first round of interviews for the documentary on Magic the Gathering, which is fucking awesome. That makes me very happy. Yeah, so what else? We met Sheldon Meanery, the gentleman who invented the format, or at least put it together with some of his buddies. What else? It was a really cool time.
Got to hang out with some fantastic artists.
Yeah,
So.
Donato Giancola was there, Dave Palumbo, Lars Grant West. Who else was there? There were several others, and please don't, I will feel terrible if I don't remember everybody, so. Hey, Ayneth.
Hello.
So yeah, what's coming up in the future? So what are we doing? Next week, I'm assuming we will all be here the Thursday after Christmas, but I will, anyway. And then the week after that, I will be in Disney World, so. Whatever the ladies decide to do without me is fine, but
Wasn't Mag before then?
Mag is right
All
after
of
that.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
we will likely be moving our Thursday night in 2 weeks to a Saturday night at MagFest.
Yeah.
Live from MagFest. It's Coven MTG.
Which we did that last year. So.
Yeah, Command Fest was pretty cool. Even though I'm going to be bitter for the rest of my natural life that my lovely wife gave her her second the soul ring that this playmat is based on.
You know, I thought Brian was gonna share his, and he didn't.
So yeah, Cave Girl gave NPC the extra soul ring.
I'm sure it'll look lovely in one of my
I'm sure it will look
decks.
lovely in one of your commander decks. It certainly looks lovely on the table. So yes, this is the super special soul ring art from Command Fest.
Yep.
It's Mark Tedden who did it? I think it's Mark Tedden, right? Do. Mark Tedden. Yep, there we go. All right, so we're going to start with the 60, and...
You should. I might have one extra card in here. I'll deal with that later.
That's perfectly fine. We will talk about our backers after the first game.
After the, okay.
because we want to make sure people are actually watching. Because
Yes.
it does us no good to
Although
thank
we
people.
know, Banshee, you're one of them,
Yep.
so thank you.
We'll just give a quick shout out to Banshee, who's here.
Yay.
Thank you for backing us on Patreon.
Yes. I
3.
got a 3.
Jayberry beat a 3. That's some dice. They match your deck.
Why? You're like winning
An
with an
8.
8, and she did 8.
Oh, well, roll again.
Do we roll off?
We roll off.
8
8.
again.
Roll for me.
2.
There you go. You go first.
Alright, well, I don't have a deck yet, so
Should I just go first?
just
Yeah,
go first.
because I can't use that hand.
There we go. All right. I
I was tinkering with Corvold for those following at home.
I'm going to put my kind of counters right there. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Should I play on 2 lands? Stream, should I play on 2 lands?
No.
Wait.
No, I should not.
I mean, everyone knows the answer to that.
Shut it.
There's some decks that.
Yeah, if I were playing like a tiny little white weenie deck, I'd absolutely play on 2
Yeah.
lands.
If I were playing an elf deck, yeah.
Or if I were playing, instants and sorceries, I'd play on 2 because I'd draw into it in a heartbeat.
If I was playing an elf deck and had a Priest of Titania in my opening hand, yeah.
If this was a forest rather than a plains in a Sol Ring, I would probably
Yeah,
kept
no,
it.
you should not do that.
But I'm not going to do that.
Well, I only brought one 60 deck, and it's gonna lose horribly to you.
No, it's not because I am
no.
playing an Eldraine. I am playing an Eldraine block 60 card deck.
So am I.
Yes,
Is it dwarves?
it is not dwarves.
What is it?
Surprise!
It's Kniggets.
What?
Knights.
Knights.
Oh.
You silly English Knigget. Yeah. All right, I have to back that off one because it's super huge now.
I can read it now.
Can I go to
I
110?
Probably not.
It's not bad.
Is it-
Harder.
All right, I'll put it back up. It's okay. Whee.
Okay. 1, 2,
There.
3, 4, 5.
Can you read it?
Mostly. Enough. I can read it well enough.
Gotcha.
Get by.
Well, when we move out to the studio, it will be on a 40-inch television.
Yay!
Sigh.
Really?
Okay.
Watch us try to get a working opening hand.
All right. Well, I got an opening hand. I'm on your time now.
I wish I had a red.
So how's everybody's week been? Is it cold? Well, I mean, most of the people watching are from the area, but is it cold where you are? Because it's fucking cold here.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like in the teens right now. Though I did see a kid skateboarding with just wearing shorts and a t-shirt outside. I was like, what the fuck?
The kid's a dumbass.
Yeah. Holy Ghost. Okay.
Praise
Yeah.
Jesus.
Praise.
The
Yeah.
power of Christ compels you.
Power of Christ compels you.
That's definitely what I wanted to call back. This is an inside joke.
Yes, a very inside
This is a
joke.
very inside joke. But don't be surprised if I just yell out Holy Ghost in the middle of a game. And if you know me in real life, you can ask me later.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see. Be an
Bitterly
opening
cold.
hand.
Oh man, I'm so
Oh.
sorry.
2,
Oh, that sucks.
I don't care about the first part, but the second part sucks.
7.
I kind of like the cold. I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Okay, I can work with this.
All right, Windscarred Crag, pass turn.
Hang on. Come on. I might need to put more mana in here. If this is telling me anything, fine.
There you go.
Good?
For now.
Yeah.
That would have been a long
Actually,
stretch
yeah.
of pain.
I'm gonna redo that.
1, 2,
Plain
3,
and a
4,
Venerable Knight.
5, 6,
Okay.
7, 8.
What does a venerable knight do?
It is a 2/1 knight, and when it dies, I get to put a +1/+1 counter on target knight.
Okay. And
What's that?
we
Okay.
draw up to 8.
Yep.
Drops, yeah, and you draw 8th on your turn.
Multiplayer. Oh, I need life die.
Oh.
Oh, I should have drawn on my turn, which I forgot to do.
Hey, you should get life die.
I have life die.
Oh wait, you do it. Oh wait, never mind. It
I
was
do
to the
too.
side there. I was really confused.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I like that art.
am going to.
I love the
put,
fact that it's literally 2 women on a knight card. That's awesome.
Sand Steep.
Sandstep Citadel.
Sandstep Citadel.
Yeah, that.
Amzan.
Pastor.
Black, green, white. Got it.
Ready to go.
That
Go.
him to Torak playmat looks nice on the stream tonight.
Yeah, it does.
Alright. Untap, upkeep, draw. I will play
Happy Star Wars
a
Day.
mountain. I will tap a mountain and a plane for a crystal slipper.
What does that one do?
It gives target creature +1 and haste, but I need 1 more to equip it. I do not have the extra mana to equip it, so evens and odds. Jayberry, take 2.
2.
The knight,
Yeah, it's a
the
2-1.
elderly knight is whacking you in the head.
Oh, the elderly knight can go whack herself in the head. Who's going to see Star Wars this weekend?
There we go.
The last in the Skywalker saga.
Okay.
That is the
So-
crystal slipper.
Go.
Untap. Upkeep. Draw.
Is that knight a 2?
It's a 2/1 for 1 mana.
Okay. Yikes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I am going to play a forest.
Cool.
And then I'm going to tap the Citadel to play a Soul Ring. And then I'm going to just do this because I can and play my Wolf Skull Shaman.
Was it Wolf Skull Shaman?
Yes. Wolf dash Skull.
Thank you.
Kinship.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, I love it.
Alrighty then. The Chorus of Howls answers his call. So if you look at the top card, if it shares a creature type, so if it's an elf or a shaman, you
Yep.
get a 2/2.
Yep.
Okay.
Pass turn. Which you're not wrong. If I turn this into a commander deck, that becomes probably
hey, look,
more
it's
meaningful.
a signed forest.
Ooh, a sexy side.
Who
forest.
signed it?
Scott Murphy did.
Nice.
Alright. I have 2 mana.
I think Star Wars is the Christmas Day extravaganza for me and Cave Girl. If assuming we're not going to, I think we're doing the family on Christmas Eve and.
I'll play a Rimrock Knight. It's a 3/1.
Yep.
Can't block, though.
You're playing knights. Got it.
Dwarf Knight.
Dwarf. Oh, you're playing.
I'm playing a
That'd be
7
cool.
doors deck.
That's awesome.
So it's not adventuring?
No, it's not adventure.
Alright. Untap, upkeep, draw. I will play a mountain. Creature. Yeah, let's see.
I've heard stories about the holiday special. I can't make myself watch it.
I will play a Brimstone Trebuchet.
What's it do?
I hate that thing. It keeps pinging you for 1.
There we go. So I tap to do 1 damage to each opponent, and whenever Knight comes into play under my control, I can untap.
Yep.
Okay. But it
Right now, it's
doesn't have haste.
No, it's a defender. It's
Yeah.
a 1/3 wall.
That can just
basically.
keep pinging you for 1 whenever he feels like
Hopefully.
it.
Yep.
Pass turn.
Okay. Untap. Upkeep. Draw.
I'm seeing it
I
tomorrow
don't
night.
think the holiday special will ever be released ever again anywhere.
I hear it's awful.
It is. It's terrible. I remember when it came
It's
out.
probably somewhere you can watch it on the internet.
Oh, you can. I'm sure you can watch it on the internet, but
Yes.
they will never officially be released again.
We can only hope.
What am I doing here?
That would make my decade.
Don't crush your terrible, terrible dreams. Okay then.
Crush them.
Gosh.
Like,
Fine.
What is good in life? Crush your enemies. See them driven before
How
you.
Yeah.
big does the crystal slipper make things?
+1/+0 in haste.
Okay.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
Wouldn't what?
I wouldn't worry about it. Hey, what's up, Drew? How's it going?
Hey.
I'm worrying about it
Hashtag
for
arena.
reasons, because I'm gonna play a Johnny.
Plus how coked out Carrie Fisher was. For those who are just joining us, we're talking
Yeah.
about the Star Wars Holiday Special.
I will tick him up to 6
My thing is not working.
and gain 3 life.
It's not working.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Huh.
Okay.
Interesting.
So,
We'll put it in a different USB port.
oh, Jaybird too, though.
Okay.
Take your turn, and we can take care of it.
So I played a Johnny,
Here, and just switch the view.
and I
Yep.
ticked him up. To
Oh,
gain 3
which
life.
Ajani did you play?
The Great Hearted.
Creatures you control have vigilance.
Yep.
That
so
one.
pretty.
Yep. And you took them up to gain 3 life.
Correct.
All right.
Grumgully, the Generous. It's a 3/3, and each other non-human creature I control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on.
Ooh,
took them
nice.
really up.
Yeah.
And Mr. Crowder just went to see the premiere, or see the Star Wars.
Who's Mr. Crowder?
Oh, sorry. Hey, hashtag.
Oh, hashtag arena.
Hashtag arena. Let me grab Golly.
Cool.
Ooh.
Don't spoil. No spoilers, please.
Spell Grimgully.
Grumgully.
Ah.
Grum Gully.
There we go.
He's very generous.
And very bright.
Yes.
And very generous.
Yep.
Alright, I'll move to combat.
Okie dokie.
Ajani, please.
Yes, I know. Hit it on you for 3.
Hello.
I will
3-1.
let a Johnny take it.
Okay, pass turn.
Ajani takes it right in the face.
Yep.
All right.
You said it, not me.
I will put a Windscarred Crag in tapped, which gives me a life. And
It's been getting bad reviews,
what?
the new Star Wars.
Yeah, but
Really?
hashtag, yeah.
Yeah, but hey,
Haters gonna hate.
Hey, haters gonna hate. I'm glad that you were crying and happy.
Yeah, really.
That's all I can hope for.
I don't know. Here, I'm gonna play another Crystal Slipper because I can. That's all I can do. And I'll put one of the Crystal Slippers on the Venerable Knight. And
Okay.
I'll sit tight and pass turn.
Okay.
You're not gonna attack a Johnny? I see how it is.
It's gonna die to that.
No, it won't. She's not gonna block with her big
why
powerful
not?
card.
Yeah.
Like, I took it because I was waiting to see what he would do, figuring it could be worse.
I mean,
so
I
don't
have
care.
2 blockers, and there's gonna be a shit ton of wolves going on over there.
Well, you can hit Crimson Trebuchet?
I will. Yeah, before my turn starts.
No, okay.
We'll get there.
You're just gonna make me do all your dirty work, I see.
So what are you doing?
I'm passing my turn.
Okay. Untap. Upkeep.
And actually, hold on, I'm an idiot. I'm not playing a second Crystal
So
Slipper.
draw. Okay. There we go.
It's what DM does, January.
What? Make you do it, yes.
Make me do your dirty work.
Val, you alright? The heat's on. Aw, you look so cold. Aw.
Hello.
Aw, you look so cold. You're just like an all
But
wrapped
it
up.
looks so fuzzy.
I was under like 2 massive blankets.
Aw.
Right, extra kid.
There are extra blankets.
He was like, we need to go. I was like, I
I can't move.
for my feet.
Aw. Would you like a bunny?
Would you
A
like a
bunny
bunny
horn?
unicorno?
How could I possibly say no to that?
There you go.
Jake,
That's what
would
I
you like
thought.
What is?
this unicorno?
It's
I have-
adorable.
I have
It's
no
for
idea
you.
what that is.
You
Thank
want
you.
it.
You know
Absolutely.
where the
Oh,
unicorns go?
Awesome.
Where?
Glad you got it, Dragon Gem.
Black.
Yay.
Oh, you got the
It's
card?
nationally
Yay!
I'm taking up
yesterday.
Johnny,
No, it's sick.
Yep.
It's, it's
And
19th.
gain life.
More life.
Today's the 19th.
and I'm gonna sit with all this open mana
You sit with all that open mana.
and pass it.
I'm glad you got it. I mailed this one this time. So, I mailed,
Aw.
what was the name of that angel? Todd Lockwood's angel with the tit
The
window.
tit window,
Yeah.
Desolation Angel.
Desolation Angel, I think.
I suspect, yes, we can do that. I mean, anybody can do that. If I did it, it wouldn't be infringement. But yeah, I think that would be actually a pretty cool playmat. I would actually need to talk to Jeff Easley about it because we only licensed that artwork for the cover. So we left him with the intellectual property ownership, but I'm sure he'd be fine with it.
Go. Angel of Despair.
Hold on.
Angel of Despair.
Hold on. Don't pass your attack phase yet.
Well, I passed my turn,
Oh, all right. Well, I was
so
okay.
it's gone.
Well, then it doesn't matter. Okay. Before my turn, I will launch the trebuchet at each of you.
It's not
Okay.
finding $500.
Poof.
Is it to each player?
To each
Yeah.
opponent.
Each player.
All right.
No.
Then I will launch the trebuchet at each player again.
And it
Okay.
begins. Yep.
Oh, did you play? I
Knight?
see.
Now
No.
I'm playing a knight.
Wait.
I did it before my turn started.
Oh.
I did it on my turn, and then I untapped and when I played a knight just now.
And what knight did you play?
I played the Fireborn Knight.
What does that do?
2/3 double strike.
Okay.
And I think I would like to put the Crystal Slipper on that knight.
Okay.
And I will pass my turn.
Even though it has haste.
Huh.
Okay.
You're really just trying to bait me over there.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Yep.
Okay.
You really are just trying to
Untap.
bait me into
Upkeep.
attacking you over there.
Draw. Okay. Let's see. You may look at the top card, so upkeep.
Yeah, merch is where it's at. Merch is where it's all at, baby. Honestly,
Okay.
we should have Coven playmats. We should have...
Revealing it.
Yeah.
It's an elf. I get a wolf.
Yep. Wolf. Arr!
And
Yeah.
So, Dragon Gem had a viewer redeem channel points for you to wear a dragon mask on the stream. Would you like? Yes, please share a screenshot, and I will try to pull it up.
Nice.
Let me see if I get that on the stream.
That's awesome. Gotta move it.
Yeah.
I am going to
Hold
tap
on. Wait for it.
a forest.
There it is.
There it is.
Hey.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I'm
Love
going to
it.
tap a forest and my soul ring to do evolutionary sage.
Okay.
Alright, Evolutionary Sage is in, and when it comes in, you proliferate. Right? Or when your land comes in.
When a land comes in.
Got it.
And then, since it seems like folks are gunning for Johnny, I'm going to tap him down 2 and put counters on things.
Yep.
Although, does he get a counter?
What does it say?
It says put a counter on
Creature.
Creature. He's
each other planeswalker.
Ah,
He's interesting because he'll
he
pick up,
pokes planeswalkers.
Yeah.
but not himself.
Yep. Put
Because
plus 1
that
counter on
would
each
be
creature you
broken.
control and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker.
Yeah. But other,
Well, yeah, functionally that ability would be a -1 then.
yeah. Okay.
Alright, cool.
What else do I have in my hand? Plenty of stuff to fuck shit up.
Alright, so if you guys have points you want to see, you want to give us for weird things like wearing dragon masks, by all
pass
means let us
turns.
know.
Yes.
Because that would be hilarious.
Pass turn.
Yep.
Man, I'm telling you, this Command Fest playmat looks awesome.
Yep.
Keeper of Fables.
Card draw engine.
So whenever one or more non-human creatures I control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card.
And it's a cat, which is hilarious.
And it comes in with a +1/+1 counter because it's a non-human.
It looks like
Oh, I love that
it
card.
looks like it should be an elemental cat or something. Like that looks like it shouldn't just be a
I
cat.
don't disagree.
Anyway.
Um,
And
Feline
I'm just going to point out Val on the couch behind me, still bundled in scarf and jacket because it's so cold
Is
out.
this any good?
Yeah, try it. It's
Yeah,
a good
it's pretty
bourbon.
good.
It's the good bourbon.
Go.
I will launch the trebuchet before my turn.
Yep. We're just gonna die to the trebuchet.
Well, the problem is
And whatever
she's
else
gaining
you have.
life.
Now you're one.
I don't see that as a problem. It might be a problem for you.
How big are your creatures?
3/3, 3/3, 4/3.
I'm gonna. The Ardenvale Tactician is gonna go on an adventure.
Okay, what does that do?
It's gonna tap that and that.
Okay.
My double striker is going at a Johnny
Sounds like a blind.
for 3.
What? How big is the life?
It is a 3/3 right now. It can potentially be a 4/4.
It can potentially be a 4/4.
Correct.
How's that?
I can pay mana and give it +1/+1.
How much mana?
The ceiling blankets.
Can I see?
4. I do.
You don't have 4.
I do not have 4 mana, so no, it cannot be 4/4.
So it's currently a 3/3.
Double strike.
That's fine.
Okay.
I really didn't want to use this card,
It's okay.
but sure.
Hidden dark trees.
So Moonlight Hunt against
Yeah.
that
So
creature.
all wolves are going to do their damage to it.
Yes.
Or are they fighting, or are they doing it?
They're doing damage.
Yep.
They aren't
Nope,
fighting.
That's it. Yep. Moonlight Hunt. Poof. That dies. And the Ardenvale Tactician is going to come back from its adventure and come into play.
And what does it do?
It's a 2/3 flying knight. And
That's
I
probably
played-
going to be problematic for me.
Yes, it is. Good. I
don't
hope
really
it
have
is.
It's a
flyers.
flying knight.
Yes.
Good. All right. Pass turn.
Okay.
Oh wait. Hold on.
Wait.
Damage to each opponent. Then play the Ardenvale, and it untaps the Brimstone.
You're
Fine.
actually defrosting.
Okay. So untap.
Yo.
I have an upkeep ability, so I look at.
That's awesome. You should do that. We'll do that. All right. I will absolutely do that, Dragon Gem. That's a great idea.
Okay. Reveal.
Plane chase, and the viewers get to spend points to make us go to the plane instead of us rolling.
Nice.
It's an elf.
Okay.
So wolf token. Okay.
Percent. I missed some of these other. How about spend points and 2 players switch decks?
One is you don't get to play your commander.
Well, I mean, it should be interesting things, not like fuck a player over.
Yeah. Some people will rely on their commanders being played.
Yeah,
over.
I mean, it should be interesting and maybe chaotic, but not screw this person because we spent points on it.
Not our place.
Yeah. It's why we don't play land destruction decks for the most part. Because that's kind of shitty.
We have a little bit though to
Well,
kind of
targeted.
keep things in check.
Yep, to get rid of the
Tapping
Reliquary
on the
Towers,
cave.
Rogue's Passages, and Cabal Coffers.
Llanowar.
Yeah.
Actually, hang on.
Percent. I need some of that bourbon now that I can smell it. Or scotch now that I can smell it.
I could have done something else, but you know what? Sometimes gotta be bold.
No, you should look at that thing.
Yeah, and
In
you're
that
welcome
bag.
to come up and sit with us.
What?
I know he's cuter than we are,
I mean,
I am.
but no, some of those ideas were
He's,
great. I like the
magic
plane
art
chase
there.
one. I like the switch decks one. I don't know how they'd feel about it, but I love that switch decks one. Like here's some shit you've never seen before.
In the white thing.
Ticking a Johnny up.
For 3 life. So Ajani is going to ensure that only you die to the Brimstone Trebuchet, and I will be attacking Ajani on my turn.
That's fine.
I go?
Yes.
And I just helped you fix that deck, so I know there's only one more of those in there.
The Johnny or
No, the,
Knight?
The instant that you just cast.
Dwarven Mine enters untapped because I have 3 or more mountains. I get
Cool.
Dwarf.
Dwarf.
A 1/1 dwarf.
It's a
oh, wait,
dwarf.
he comes in with a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah.
Because he's not a human.
Not a human.
Not a human.
So there's a client I have whose name is Yumon. Youmon. He's Asian, obviously, but I cannot read his name without thinking of Quark or some other Ferengi going, Yumon.
Alright.
And Dragon Gym, don't worry about like telling us interesting ideas. We like them.
Yeah.
So feel free to send them in because you're here on a regular basis. So we're kind of here to have fun and cater to the people who bother to watch.
Another keeper
Exactly.
of fables.
Oof.
Yeah. Nice.
If you hit me with something small, I'll let you draw
me
2
draw a
cards.
card?
What's the
All
smallest thing you got?
A
two-
dwarf.
A 3/3. A
2/2
2/2.
dwarf.
He's summoning 6, so
Ah.
3/1. 3/1 or 3/3.
Fine. Hopefully you can find an answer. Hit me.
Alright, hit ya.
I'm
Take
at 19.
3.
Draw 2 cards.
Draw 2 cards.
We're playing Arch Enemy, by the way.
Oh. Okay.
Ginger Brute.
It's not going to help me.
Nope.
And you already did combat, so
Yep. But I get a Ginger Brute.
You got a Ginger Brute.
He's a 2/2 Ginger Brute.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't get through that. So.
I'm going to get it to Johnny, hopefully.
Okay.
Alright, for my turn. Launch the Shadavash! Launch the Trebuchet! Untap the Trebuchet.
Eat the trebuchet.
Uh,
Oh, Uno and the order reverses. So that'll be interesting.
I'm going to play another Crystal Slipper. I'm going to attach them both to the Ardenvale Tactician. I'm going to swing for 4 to Johnny.
oh. Bye, Johnny.
Yay! The life I gain engine is gone.
I'm sorry, Mr. Trebuchet.
I'm not gaining life.
You're just
Yeah.
Well, okay, I am
But-
now. 1.
Yeah, but
It's literally 3 of my 4 Windscarred Crags. Pass turn?
at the end of your turn, I tap 3 for a Pledge of Unity.
Yep.
Put a counter on each thing, and then gain life for each creature I control. Ah. Okay.
The turn order reversing thing, that's really rough for people because you end up with somebody not getting a turn for like... So let's say I play, NPC plays, and then that happens. I play again, and if somebody's on my side, you know, they play again. So somebody gets really screwed because they don't get a turn for like 4 or 5 turns.
3, 4, 5.
In Commander, when you're doing that on purpose, I see it, but I think that might be a little too... It might be a little too easy to screw
so-
somebody. And I get
Yeah.
it. It's good. It's an interesting idea.
Upkeep. Draw. Okay.
I mean, I think more interesting would be like the switching deck thing, where everybody just gets up and sits one more to their left. So you just sit down at somebody else's spot and play. I kind of dig on that. I don't know. I like the chaos shit.
Me too.
that'll be fun.
Oh, like the next game. Okay, not in the middle of the game. Got it.
Oh.
Or, you know, I like... We should be writing these down. Can someone write these down? And put them in the stream?
Or we could just take a screenshot
Can I
or
see
take a
the
picture.
slipper and your trebuchet?
Oh god, I had an idea and it just went away. Because you brought up my trebuchet. No.
How badly do I hate the trebuchet or the shoes? Probably I hate the trebuchet more.
But you can survive the trebuchet.
Yeah, I mean, in all things being equal, the trebuchet is going to kill Jayberry, not you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the shoes are more likely to kill me because they're now on a flying creature that I can't block.
Well, but even better than that, have you read Ginger Brute? You're not going to get a Planeswalker in play ever. You just pay 1, and it can only be blocked by a creature with haste, so it's just going to beat on the Planeswalkers. And that's good. I'm okay with that.
Now that you bring that up, I'm gonna hang on.
Gingerbread is
See
so
what
great.
happens.
If you can
Gingerbread's a really
If
cool
you can
card.
put a bazillion counters on him, it's insane.
What are your? So you've got a defender.
I've got
That's-
a 1/3 defender and a 2/1 knight.
1/3 defender and a 2/1 knight.
That's it. I like that you guys get to pick our decks. That's more fun.
So I just watched the Christmas episode of Game Nights, where one person created 5 Magic decks, and it was like a gift exchange kind of
Oh,
thing, where
crap.
each one got a number. So the
I
first
played
person
a
picked
land,
first.
so I actually get to proliferate.
Yep.
There you
And
go.
it's been so long since I played a land. I forgot. This makes it so much better.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yep. Yes, it does.
Yeah, I should have done something sooner, but now I can't.
Why? Just, I mean,
I-
here's the
You're too
problem.
big.
If she comes at me, then she's open to you. So she's got to wait until she can kill both of us.
Or I can slowly pick at things. Like with this now 5/5 wolf. So
I have things to throw under the bus.
You do.
And a card in my hand.
You do. But
Could be a Boros charm. Could not be. Yeah.
you know what? Pass turn.
Okay.
Let's see how this shakes out.
That's interesting. It's alright. Let's see what you got going on over there. The Peripherate Elf, 2 wolves, 2 more elves. Gotcha. And a whole bunch of non-humans of dwarves and cats. And a ginger brute.
Yep.
And I have a Venerable Knight, a Ballista, and a Flyer. With 2 slippers. Aw, it's wearing 2 slippers.
There we go. It's got a matching set.
My human Sky Knight is wearing a pair of glass slippers. I feel very effeminate right now. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to picture now how you would draw that.
I'm gonna sit on all this open mana. Go.
Okay, you're not going to attack?
No.
Okay. Launch the Trebuchet before my turn. Untap, upkeep, draw. Launch the Trebuchet! And then I'm going to untap it when I play this Knight. The Ogre Errant.
What does it do?
Whenever it attacks, another target knight gains menace until the end of the turn. 4 flying. Because now you're at 24 instead of 28.
Okay.
Pass turn.
At the end of your turn.
Yes.
I have a Bone Crusher Giant going on an instant adventure.
All right.
What's it do?
Damage can't prevented this turn. Stomp deals 2 damage to any target.
Okay.
So I'll deal 2 to.
You're not going to kill anything. Might as well.
But it
Poker
stays
face.
there while I do another thing, right?
Are you doing it during her upkeep or at the end of my turn?
At the end of your turn.
The
I'm gonna
damage
play another-
heals at the end of my turn.
Well, then. Alright,
Do it
I
at
got
the
2
beginning.
instant spells.
Yeah, do it at the beginning of her turn.
Okay.
Before her untap.
Beginning of your turn.
Okay.
If that's a thing, I'm pretty sure you can.
Alright, I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And then.
2/2.
2, 3.
Aw, you guys are so cute.
An additional 4 to that.
Would
you like me to go
upstairs and get it?
What you got?
extra one?
It's additional 4 to
Yep.
that.
Mhm.
Okay.
So because I played 3 mana to do that.
What's that?
So 2 and then an additional 4.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
3.
So what happens?
So I did a Slaying Fire with
Ah.
Adamant.
Cool.
So it deals 4 and then 2. Damage can't be. This verse damage can't be prevented, and then 4.
I just want to see Slaying Fire.
Okay. Oh no.
Oh, I love that art.
Goodbye, Sage.
Goodbye, Sage.
Yeah, the proliferate needed
All right,
to die.
this is on its adventure, and then your turn commences.
Okay.
Continues, so you untap.
So,
Upkeep, draw.
what I want to do... Yeah, I don't want to do any of that. So, upkeep phase. No. Okay.
That's gorgeous art. Who is that? That's really pretty. I've never paid. I haven't paid attention to Slain Fire.
Hyunwha Cho? If I had to
And
guess how to say
I'm
that.
an ugly American, and I cannot pronounce that to save my life. So
If I had to guess. This is only me guessing.
we are trying.
We're trying. But I can't
Okay.
say that I've ever heard of that name before. But the art's pretty great.
Yeah. Does my heart good that they're actually, hiring people to do stuff that are and silly me for assuming they're not American, but
Yeah.
I know that they're reaching out around the world to get some interesting perspectives on art. So
Yeah. Oh, show.
How big is your giant?
3-4.
Okay. Good to know.
Let's see. All right, let's take a look around the table because there's a lot of stuff going on here. So, I have a knight with 2 glass slippers, a flying knight. Let's put it underneath.
Ugh.
I have a 3-4 ogre knight that gives another knight menace. I have a 1-3 trebuchet, and a 2-1 knight, and that's kind of it. And
Okay.
1 card in my hand,
And then you want to show our side?
and then
No, here.
5-5 elf or a 5-5 wolf, a 4-4 wolf, a 3-3 elf, and a 5-5 elf.
Okay. A 3-1 dwarf knight, a 3-3 goblin shaman,
Yep.
a 5-6 keeper of fables, a 2-2 dwarf, another 5-6 keeper of fables, and a 2-2 ginger brute.
I love the ginger brute.
That art is creepy if you look at it. He's so creepy.
He's so cute, though.
Cute and creepy.
So cute.
What you doing?
Ah. Trying to decide if
Now
I want
this is
to mess
NPC
with
Bond.
people's
You
stuff.
die.
Do you want to live forever? Oh, wait, wrong. Wrong series.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I should never do that again.
I will hold.
Should not
Pass
do that
turn.
again. All right. Untap. Draw.
I submit to you that maybe on our 2nd anniversary next July, that yes, the stream should be able to give us money to make us do shots.
I'm too old for that shit, but he's young and spry.
This is, you know what?
The match be shot.
Kind
about-
of. It's not really standard, no.
Just
When
once.
NPC got here tonight, she was tweaking a casual wolf deck, and she wanted to play it. So we figured since Val was not here yet, we would play a 60 to get started. So we will be doing a. It's
Commander.
I'm
so-
playing tribal knights, so it's kind of standard. I don't think I've played anything not in standard right now,
I definitely have.
except the card in my hand is not in standard.
All right. So Bone Crusher Giant comes back from his adventures.
And what does he do?
He's a 5/4
That's the card in my hand.
now. That was
Okay.
so he just whenever he becomes the target of a spell, he deals 2 damage to that spell's controller.
Okay.
And
But he's not hasty.
he's not hasty. And I'm gonna.
I don't know if this card. Let me find out.
I'm gonna hit you with my unblockable ginger brute.
Sure.
Unless you have a haste creature.
No.
Nope.
Okay. And so we took 2, and I passed the turn.
Before my turn, I will launch the trebuchet.
Yep.
I just need to wait out January. Like,
Yeah. Oh wait, and then a creature did damage to you, so I draw a card.
Yep.
Cool.
All right.
The damage to who? Me?
You.
Oh,
You.
okay.
Yeah.
4 flying.
Okay. That brings me down to 17.
Pass turn.
Okay. Wait, no knight?
I did not draw a knight this turn.
Like. Okay. On top.
Pioneer.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that the card that
It's
I
not
showed
Pioneer,
the stream.
because isn't Pioneer no more than one? No, wait, that's Brawl.
Here we are.
Yeah, I'm getting confused.
What is
Man,
Pioneer
It's an
again?
elf.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh fuck, that's gonna be a problem.
Oh, that thing's
What is it,
still out.
Tulsimir?
Yes, friend to wolves. By the way, Ryan's artwork, love it.
Yep.
Got to see it in person. It's fantastic.
All right.
So you get a
Wait, I
token?
need a wolf token. I've run out of wolf tokens.
I agree wholeheartedly, Cage Tiki. When I started playing, it was literally.
This is fine. It's a 2/2 wolf.
It was literally, what was it? Legacy
Here.
and
Did I
Legacy
kill that? What did I
and
kill?
Standard.
You killed the sage.
Like Vintage didn't even
Oh, I
exist.
didn't mean to kill the sage. Oh wait, it
Was
probably
are you
don't
playing with the
kill
Power 9 or are you
well.
playing regular Magic?
I meant to kill that.
Too late.
Too
The
late.
sage has been dead for 2 rounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that thing's
And in fact,
gorgeous.
I would have
Fine.
rather had the sage because then.
Proliferating.
Yeah, like.
I did not.
All
I
right.
made a mistake, but it wasn't a bad
No,
mistake.
no, that was a good mistake. I mean, I don't want a +1 counter on all those things every time she plays a land. That was
Yeah.
no, you did the absolute right thing.
Yay! My ineptitude saved myself.
Well, what else? I mean,
I was gonna go for that,
nah,
but no, you're right.
because 50-50 given enchantments and other things. We're talking about too many formats.
Yeah, there's too
Okay.
many formats.
So,
Val, you know what you're gonna play?
What?
You know what you're gonna play?
I am going to play Tulsimir, Friend to Wolves. And that means.
Let me bring that up
Yeah,
again.
Yes.
Voya comes in.
You wanna see
think
if
I
I can
have a
find it?
Whenever a wolf enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 3 life, and that creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control.
So Voya triggers that thing right away, right?
Yes.
V.
Because Voya is a wolf.
Let me see if I have one.
Let's see.
You're still in the W's.
I know, right? Vampire, it'll be in between.
No, here. No, here.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there she is. I'm killing
Yay.
this. Because Voya is gonna fight.
Alright,
Yeah.
Gingerbread is gone.
And I gain 3 life.
Well, actually. Nope, couldn't do it. It's fine.
All right.
I was hoping I could sack him, but he was already tapped.
Just
Oh, that's pretty cool. The 45th anniversary D&D dice. If you haven't seen them, they're pretty
Look at
No,
sexy.
I haven't.
Artwork. Now I want one.
You can't
It's
have
so
one.
pretty.
Didn't you get one? I thought it came with the Selesnya deck.
It did?
so
Yeah.
I bought this set. This did not come with this.
Oh, I
Selesnya
thought
deck.
I thought it came
This
with.
is
Oh,
Spark.
it's Spark. Yeah. Okay. Never
Oh,
mind.
gee.
Relax.
Take your turn.
Anything else?
Hang on.
Attacks?
She's just literally sitting there building an impenetrable wolf wall.
Yes.
Yeah, so at least she's down
no
to 20.
attacks hurt now.
I go.
Faster. Yes.
Okay. At the end of your turn,
Mm-hmm.
no, they're in their shower and some demons.
3
Kill something. Kill it. Kill it.
to do 4 to that.
Okay.
So,
Well, fuck.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
if
what they
it's
look
an
like. They're pretty
instant
sexy.
and I have something that has flash, can I do things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
What are you doing?
Not that it's gonna matter. Do I want to do this? Yes, I do. Fine. You're gonna fuck with my shit. I'm gonna fuck with your shit. Because I think this will work.
All right. Tell me what you're playing. I'll pull it up.
What size do I care if I?
Tell me what you're playing and I'll pull it up.
No contact.
Sure. Spirit of the Hunt.
Ah.
Because he's not dead yet.
Right.
So, and I can kill the thing giving her stuff counters.
There you go.
Because it'll fight and I'll still get the life gain. Now, sure, it'll die, but her thing will die too.
Mutually assured destruction.
Dead.
All right. You got it. It happens. Wave to the stream, guys.
Hello.
Wait, no.
Oh wait, this one.
And
This
then
one.
I gain 3 life. And here you go. You served me well.
Yeah, killed 2 things.
Did that still die?
Yeah.
It wasn't countered?
There was no counter.
It wasn't a
Oh.
counter.
Oh.
I was just trying
She
to.
flashed something in and made them fight and in
Okay,
response.
okay.
Power of me actually
Got it.
keeping track and
Alright,
maybe a half an hour to an hour of trying to mix it so that something for my parents to see.
So does anybody have any wonderful plans for the holidays? I am bringing my lovely wife for the first time in our 40s to Disney World, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Fuck yeah.
My mother decided this was the year that the entire family was getting together in Disney. So
Guess who's back?
Shady's back. Yeah.
How?
I had 2 of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
There are 2 of them in
Now,
there.
I mean, it's legendary, but
From Gully's back.
now the other one's dead, so I can bring out the other one.
Was it sitting in your hand dead for a
Yeah.
while? Yeah.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
sitting in my hand.
All right.
Alright, Grumgully's back.
That's
And
fine.
now
you
I
had to
can't
spend
stop
money.
singing Shady's back.
Back it.
Why?
Back again.
Okay.
Alright. Next. For my next trick,
Watch me pull this rabbit out of my ass.
I'm not gonna watch you pull a rabbit out of your ass.
I submit to you that would be an awful
What you
thing.
doing?
Damage can't be prevented this turn. I'm going to deal 2 damage.
This is the only thing you can kill.
Uh,
Unless you're doing something else.
I'm gonna do doing something else.
Kill if you can the one that lets her reveal and get tokens.
I can't.
Yeah.
I'll deal 2 damage to.
This is a
How did you
2/2.
gain
This
3
is a
life?
3/3. Because when a wolf comes in,
Uh huh.
which it did,
Yeah.
Oh, you
It-
gain 3 life when a wolf comes in?
yes.
That's why that needed to die.
I'll deal 2 to that,
Okay,
and then I'm gonna do it again.
fine.
So it's dead.
That's fine.
How big was it? 4/4?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there anything else that was 4/4? No, that
No.
elf was
No.
5/5. Damn it.
And okay. So so I got these guys. And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
You've got 5.
There we
I've
go.
got 4, 5. Well,
He's
I've
got a
5.
trebuchet that's killing you.
I know.
But the point is,
I don't
it's
have
killing
any
you
good
too.
choices.
Yeah,
It's
but
killing you too.
you've seen that I can gain life and survive longer than her, so it's like a grizzly bear chasing you. You push down the other person and you keep going.
Wow.
So,
Jayberry, you are the person she's pushing in front of the grizzly bear.
I didn't have to push her. You tripped her. And ran
Wait,
for
I
it.
thought I was the grizzly bear.
I don't know what's happening.
I thought I was the grizzly bear in this scenario.
Everything is bad. I'm attacking you with these 4 creatures.
Great.
I'm the grizzly
Which ones are the big ones?
5/4
But also the one doing the tripping.
and a 5/6.
So,
5/4, 5/6, 2/2, 3/1.
so I'm willing to take 5 damage to
Okay.
not completely be open.
I draw a card.
No,
You draw 2
because I'm
cards.
not. Any creature does damage.
Any
Whenever
non-human.
non-human, 1 or more non-human, I draw a card.
And you have 2 of those creatures
I
in
have
play.
2
so you
of
draw
those,
2
so I
cards.
draw 2 cards.
Fine.
So, okay, you're gonna take
But-
5. All right.
Yeah.
I
So
got 2
let's see. I've got this one. What is the size of that? That's 4.
5,
5,
4.
4.
5/4.
Do I just want to
5,
kill
6.
it so you can't have stuff again?
Sure.
I gotta bring up that cat because whenever 1 or more. Okay, so
you know what?
You really do.
and it's got to be combat damage. So you're not going to draw 2 for each
No,
creature.
you're
it's
not going
just-
to draw 2.
yeah.
You should only be drawing
And
one.
it shouldn't happen until after combat. But
So
So I only draw 1 card.
yes,
no, you're
Or
going to
2
draw
cards
2.
because of this.
Just as quick.
She's got
Guys.
2 of them in play.
that's okay.
She's got
that's
2 of that
fine.
creature
yeah,
in play.
She has 2. Yeah, but if you didn't have 2, you'd still
Well,
only
one,
be
right.
drawing 1.
Yeah, that's I know.
Okay, so I'm blocking the big ones, and
Okay.
I'll take 5.
Okay.
So,
You're ruining the blood off of me.
Yep.
okay.
Pass turn.
I'm sorry. Would you repeat that?
Yep. That was the
Pass turn.
sentence that was just said out loud.
I'm sorry. What was it? What was that?
Pass turn.
Pass turn.
Beginning and say that I hurt my thumb.
It was pass
and
turn.
Launch the trebuchet.
And
We're
I didn't know
listening.
my thumb was bleeding, and I touched my face. And
This thing still doesn't
so
work.
Jake just
Oh,
jammed the
I'll
blood
fix it
off
later.
of me.
Alrighty then.
That's
There's all 4 of my Windscarred Crags.
Good for you.
Yay. Like, literally, that's half the land in my deck. Alrighty then.
Jack and Gem. What did you post?
That was the link to the D&D dice.
The link to the D&D dice.
Jesus.
What?
4 flying.
Okay.
Pass turn.
Okay. Untap. Okay. And upkeep.
Colorado. Manitou's
Draw.
Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, but
What am
there's-
I gonna do here?
Now, Mr. Bond.
You're going
You
to
die.
die.
He's punk. Remember we did?
I'm gonna die.
And I'm just going to do this because NPC's necklace freaks me out because it's little squid tentacles.
Excuse me.
It's fantastic.
I think I ate some hair.
There's a lot of jokes there.
Okay.
Oh, I dropped the card on the floor because I'm an idiot.
I was not looking.
Lemon lime.
The Petit Jedi.
Oh, shit.
That's fantastic.
That is really cool.
Fuck, I've got the shirt for you.
Bye, Ravok.
You gave me a shirt.
We are starting the evening. Val was not here in time, so we started with a 60 card, and we've been playing
Was there a shirt?
basically arch enemy against NPC, who's got a crazy ass wolf deck.
The one I gave you was from the internet.
It's not that crazy.
Okay.
And this will be done in like 10 minutes, and then we'll get started on a commander game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die soon.
I'm
in
about
danger.
to go jazz hands. I don't really want to go
That's been
jazz
fun.
hands,
Okay.
but
Me too.
yeah, I don't really want to go jazz hands. But I also have certain other needs.
Yep.
You should take a portable space.
I also have certain other needs.
Okay, I am tapping 2 because I'm killing one of your slippers.
Uh,
I'm not even gonna kill
of the
the
slippers?
Dresser because I'm hoping
I
it'll
know.
do enough damage.
Alright, the slipper dies.
Okay.
You've killed the glass slipper. What would Cinderella say?
You got.
She
You had
can
2 of
suck
them.
it.
She only needed
My
one.
human Sky Knight is missing a slipper. It's literally gonna have to come find a
She
slipper
only needs
now.
one to fulfill the prophecy.
God.
I
Okay.
mean,
And then I'm going to tap 6 for an Arlen.
Arlen.
And I'm going to
Arlen
take
Core, the
her
voice.
down to 5, voice of the pack.
Spell it
And
A-R-L-I-N.
give myself a wolf. A-R-L-I-N-N.
Yep. That one.
And the wolf gets a counter.
Got it.
So,
Hey, there's another Ryan Pancost.
yes. Wolves.
Cool.
Okay.
Any attacks?
No.
I go.
Yes.
No.
Alrighty then. And if anyone has any interesting ideas, other than, making us take our clothes off or drink liquor to give us points,
Drop.
Too old for that.
yeah, too old for that. But,
I mean, we'll drink liquor without
yeah.
giving us
As soon as this
points.
game is over, there will be a Manhattan.
Yes. Okay.
I really do like the whole everybody gets up and sits down one to the left.
That's
Uh-huh.
fantastic.
After I've made my pain-free nest.
Or everybody just passes their deck to the left.
Yeah.
I hate
Slide
that
play
stuff.
that.
And I gotta tell you, I think we should implement
Back
it
from
for the new
his
year. So
adventure.
in January, everybody makes the shittiest deck they can that's still playable, and you
Of
bring
course
it.
is.
But then you have to pass it one to the left. So somebody's gonna play it. The
Back
problem
from
is you
his
gotta play somebody
adventure.
else's.
Yup.
So shitty but still playable.
I'll build it.
7
Yeah.
dwarves.
Like it's not that hard. Just pick a
60
bunch of the
crabs.
same color.
Crabs, no.
I don't have any other 7 dwarves.
Oh, that's funny. How many do you have in the deck? 7?
7.
Gotcha. White Elephant Commander. I think we should start that as an actual thing.
Oh, God.
White Elephant Commander.
I mean, they did it on game nights. They
did
did
they?
it on the Command Zone, the game nights stream. Yeah, where they built 5 decks, and then the first
Oh.
person unwrapped it and found out who the commander was. And then someone else could steal it or unwrap another.
So I think what we should do is do that like a week in advance and be like, here's your commander. Now next week bring back with a deck. I think
don't
you're
know.
up, by the way.
I am. I
Oh,
already
okay.
I started my turn. So
Gotcha.
Grumgully was in, so I brought in the 2 Bone Crusher Giants from
Yep.
their adventure and played a 7
How
dwarves.
big are the Bone Crusher Giants?
4 3s
With
plus 1.
so they're 5/4s?
Yeah.
All right, I think you're starting to become the archenemy.
Yeah.
I'm not the problem.
Now you are now the problem. Let's take a look at that
Me
board
with
state, shall
13 life?
Let's see. Point to how big they are.
5-4, 5-4, 5-4.
And she's not even talking about her cats that are giving her card draw.
Right. No, I got you.
5-6, 3-3, 3-3, 2-2, 5-6, 3-1.
All right then.
Alrighty then.
Yes, you're the fucking problem.
Meow. Meow. Not the problem.
Yes, you
Not the
are.
problem. Moving to combat.
You move to combat.
Oh god. I'm gonna die now. I'm definitely gonna die now.
How are you gonna die?
I've got 9 lives, that's how I'm gonna die.
She's got 13.
Yeah.
Good news is, a lot of that came in this turn,
I
so...
Yeah, these and that. So, everything else. I'm going to not attack with that.
Yes, I was about to say,
yeah.
please attack with that.
I
No.
would leave the other cat home too. You don't want to lose both of those.
How many creatures do you have?
3.
Fine, everything's coming at you.
Hit me. All right.
So 5-6, 2-2.
Oh, look, she's sharing the love.
Yep.
All right.
So
give me the.
yeah.
Give me the.
3-1, 5-6, 2-2, 5-4.
All right.
Oh, right, you're at 21.
Yeah. I'm gonna block the
So we got a
5,
2-2.
the biggest 5.
Okay. So that's this one.
Okay. That's gonna die.
So that's 5-6.
Sure. What's next? The next biggest.
5-4.
I may take that one.
Okay. 3-1.
I'll take the 3 from that. I'm gonna take 8. And what else?
2-2.
I'll kill it with the Knight Errant.
Okay.
So you're gonna get your 2 cards.
Yep.
And I took 8 damage, and I am at 13.
And
This is
I
seeming
cast turn.
familiar.
pass turn.
Brimstone Trebuchet! Oh, and by the way, the +1/+1 counter went on my Flying Knight.
Yep.
Because I guess you can't block flying
yeah,
either.
I'm dead. I'm telling you. I'm dead.
Damn it.
Telling you I'm
I
dead.
need 1 flyer. Do I have any flyers in this deck? I don't think I have flyers in this deck. Like,
I'm gonna swing for 4 flying at you.
Okay. I'm at 4.
I'm gonna play a second Brimstone Trebuchet.
oh no.
Yeah, you see.
And I'm gonna pass my turn, and I will
But that one he can't use
this
until his next turn.
here.
So untap,
Yeah.
upkeep.
Worth it.
Okay. This is less fun.
Friends?
There are no friends right now.
Yeah, like
If you full swing at one of us, the other one wins.
Well, don't full swing.
Right.
this is a 3/3 wolf.
Why is it a 3/3 wolf? Oh, you took it
Whenever
down.
each creature you control, a wolf or werewolf, enters the battlefield, add an additional +1 and +1 counter.
Cool.
So it's a 3/3.
All right.
And
It'll be
I'm
more fun if you keep me alive.
Or we just want to end and play a game. Play a Commander game.
No, I want to see how this goes.
All right.
All right, I go.
It's gonna go off soon. Like,
Well,
past
everything's going off.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
something's gonna happen. I'm Dash Hands, so someone can kill me.
You don't have
Like-
any cards in here?
No.
Oh, okay.
Like,
All right, untap.
and considering my last 2 draws were lands, woo, so scary.
So scary.
So that's scary.
I don't think that's the problem with your deck, I realized.
What?
You can recover quickly with tokens and whatnot. You need like 2 board wipes. You need to put in a couple. There's no board wipes in your deck.
Or flying.
Well, the flying is fine. You can put reach in.
But I'm saying I don't have anything.
Yeah.
Like, had I had something to keep you from wailing on that, I could keep my insular little thing for longer.
Yeah, honestly, you don't need
7
creature removal in
dwarves.
that deck. I might consider actually taking out those 2. All my wolves deal damage to a creature for some fogs or something.
That's true. I don't have
I mean,
fog.
I am never, ever, ever, ever sad to draw fog. Ever. Like, I can't imagine a time I'm like, oh, this is a terrible card. I don't want this card.
Yay. Ooh, a
Somebody's
fog
making you
frog.
drop your hand.
What's that?
Unless someone's making you drop your hand.
Well, yeah, but I mean, at that point,
Sure.
like, not you don't get to keep anything at that point.
Every card is a bad
frog.
card then.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
love
let me
some
take that back. If somebody's playing a super instant deck with no creatures, then sure.
Spore frog.
Uh,
Because that's harder to counter. It's an ability. Like, that's why I love Spore
Well, you
frog.
just counter the Spore Frog.
Well, but I'm saying, like,
a
most
Rampart
people...
Smasher and a Ginger Brute.
Yep.
I feel
Do you
like...
have any hasty creatures?
Yes.
Wait, you do?
You do.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
because...
slipper gives something haste.
Nice. Okay. Okay. All right, we're gonna move to combat.
Yep.
What did you play this turn?
A Rampart Smasher, 7 Dwarves, and a Ginger Brute.
Nice, okay.
Ginger Brute's coming at you. He's unblockable.
Okay,
And
what else?
then at you,
Me or him?
at you, the Ginger Brute is.
Okay.
Everything else, I
All right.
think, is gonna.
I'm just
come
gonna
at you.
hand the game to NPC.
Oh.
I'm gonna do 1 point of damage to the trebuchet, and I'm gonna blow up your Ginger Brute, and you take a point of damage when it dies.
Okay.
And I'm gonna take all the rest of the damage and die.
You're not gonna block anything.
Why would I?
Okay.
I can't. If I block anything, you know what I mean?
You should have
could
waited.
You could have killed some of my stuff.
But here's the point. I want you to die. Yeah, like,
All right.
plus you're gonna die to all that right now.
All right. Did I deal combat damage
Yes,
to
you
you? All right,
deal
I
combat
draw 2
damage to me.
cards. And
I don't... Like, she still has 3 creatures.
She has 3 life. You just full swing
Oh,
everything.
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm still dead.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, my next draw was not interesting.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any
Whatsoever.
better, my next draw was a crystal slipper.
Like, I could have...
So yeah.
Like, I would
Yeah.
have sent it, but, like, even still, that's...
All right.
Sad.
So that is first game.
Okay.
I want a token.
You want the Vola or Voya?
Yes.
So you would have attacked me with 4 things.
I
5.
would have attacked you with everything.
What was the other? Was it 4 things or 3 things?
It was...
I thought it was 5. You
it
had
was
2
5. I
You
had...
had 2 wolf
Yeah.
tokens. Okay.
And Voya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So...
Well.
Actually, I had... Yeah. 5.
Okay.
I mean, could you have done anything?
Just
show us, I mean-
maybe, but I probably would still be dead. What I would have done is given something +2.
Oh, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah,
because
and
you
only
would have
one
blocked
creature
3.
had to get through.
Like, if you had killed...
Yeah.
Yep, only one thing had to get through. All right.
Oh yeah.
I know what commander I'm going to play, so you guys get yourselves ready. I am going to make a fucking Manhattan, and I'll be right back.
Yep.
Meh.
Well, maybe if I had played
Anybody else want
better,
anything?
like maybe I didn't have to swing at him with everything, but maybe I did. I probably did because he had 4 creatures, right?
And he had 2 trebuchets
Yeah.
as a problem.
Yeah.
It's a silly little deck. The deck is designed to have 4 trebuchets and just play knights. Like, and just sit there in the corner and, like,
Yeah.
launch bullets.
I mean, he
things.
maybe could have stayed alive because I only had 3 creatures left over as 4 blockers, so
Yeah.
he may have still been alive if he
Maybe.
had done the math, bothered to do the math.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I think he was more gunning to
In
get
the
on
game.
to Commander.
All right, Val.
Did you like that? Do you want some more? I like it. I mean, I think I might just actually have
Val, get in
I do
here.
like it. It's very smooth.
It's time.
It's time.
What are you playing, Val?
Time.
Are you trying to make me fatter?
I'm
trying to- hard to
I'm trying to
run.
make you sillier on the stream.
Oh, jeez. Really now? We're going there.
You have to be kind to yourself, NPC.
I
These
try.
things take time.
Okay.
Jay,
Yes.
pick one of those 3 decks sitting in front of me.
Pick our doom.
That way they don't yell at me for picking something awful. They yell at you for picking my awful deck.
No, it's your fault. It's still gonna be
I
your
should have
fault.
read the top.
Still is for choosing those 3 decks, right?
probably.
Yes.
Yeah, the big, yeah.
You get Chess Guy.
There you go. Playing Best Guy Instance.
Great.
What?
Great.
Oh. It's the 3 best colors in Magic, especially in combination.
Oh, jeez.
That's funny. The 3 best colors in Magic are black, green, and white.
Yeah. I can't deny a good junk deck.
Alright.
Sorry, folks. Grabbing decks.
Yep.
And bourbon. Can't forget bourbon.
And bourbon.
Oh, whiskey scotch, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you?
Morphon. Get Rock. Angels.
I mean, Gitrog is a whole nother power level.
What?
Gitrog is a whole nother power level.
Not against your trainer deck.
I'm not
apparently.
playing Chainer, obviously.
Like,
Yeah.
I have my crazy Saproling deck that I don't know if it works,
Try it.
and I haven't played it in forever.
Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you, Greg and Jem. Appreciate it. I'll celebrate anything, man. I'll celebrate Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, what the fuck ever. If there's liquor, I'll come to your house for it.
We'll make a new holiday for you that's all about bourbon.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's called Friday.
Or Saturday.
Or Saturday.
Just not Tuesday at noon.
Just not, yeah. It has to be like, you know, past 4 or 5.
Yes.
Unless it's a Saturday and we're doing something silly.
Absolutely.
But anyway. Alright, I will start
this
bringing up
deck again?
commanders. Arlen is not a commander. I'm playing Sabine.
Ooh, wait a second. I didn't put that in my wolf deck, but it's a 2 question cost, like 3/3 wolf, like green white.
Yeah.
But
Not
I have
commander,
other
yeah.
things. Not commander, but I'm talking about.
What's that? You made a little.
Making a little goth nest.
Goth Nest.
What are you playing?
Check this out. Brina.
Verena. Alright, to my left, Val will be playing Verena. You alright?
So cold. All the time, forever.
I don't even know if I know how to play this deck.
What are you
but-
playing? Oh, the partners?
Yeah.
Which one?
Here.
Ravos and Tana. Alright, so there's Ravos, the Soul Tender, and Tana, the Bloodsower, right?
Yeah.
So basically, it is whenever it deals combat damage, you get a Saproling, and then other creatures you control +1/+1. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may return a creature card from your. Wow. Did these two come together?
No.
Okay, you put them together.
Yeah, because I like weird. Like, my deck
I mean, that's a weird set of colors. Everything but blue.
Yeah. And it's black in there? Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it's everything but blue. What's up?
Yes.
you know I like it weird.
Let's see if I can actually get a little bit more Val on the screen, because, you know, people would rather look at you than me. Aw,
Girl, that's
you are fuzzy.
Fuzzy, fuzzy goth jacket.
It is cool. Gabriel has one in the closet, like, very much like that.
Yeah.
I try to get her to break it out more often.
Oh,
trip jacket.
I meant to put the dancing dagger in there. That just didn't happen.
Jay-Bray, what are you playing?
Corvold.
Who?
Corvold.
Oh, the Barbarians.
Dragon.
No, dragons. Vaker's King.
Oh, gotcha.
K-O-R-V-O-L-D.
The
Got it. So it's a new one for you.
throne.
Awesome.
Ooh, pretty dragon.
It is pretty.
Yup. Oh, this is gonna be a problem. This is one of the commander will kill you decks.
Yeah. So just counterspell it.
I'm
Since that's
not-
what you're playing.
Oh, no, I'm not playing counterspells. I'm playing rebound.
No.
Oh, yeah. I remember that deck.
Good you picked it early, because, you know.
Once the meds were off.
Once the meds wear off, I will not be able to track all my triggers.
My life, all the time.
I'm sorry, what?
Yep.
I like caffeine.
Oh, you get your little counter thing, or you want these?
I remember that time you made me a coffee and I didn't drink it. I left it on the table,
Yep.
Remember that time?
like right before we left the house.
That's
Oh,
me
you
and
mean
tea usually.
half
It's
an hour
like
ago?
Ash is like, why is there? Oh.
I have an entire like tea hutch.
Gifstis.
Alright.
I like that.
I make tea-
Gifstis.
oh.
I took something out and it's still saying I have too many cards.
Uh-oh.
1, 2, 3. Fuck's sake.
Oh, right.
Did you
I
maybe
haven't
shuffle
put
the commander in?
5. No.
Uh,
I'm like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I don't think I've ever played this deck other than the time that we broke it out of the box. So here we go.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you played it one other time.
I mean, it's
oh,
completely new. Like, there's
no
not even like
mana. That's
fingerprints
that's
on
awesome.
the sleeves yet. So.
Oh, look, this card is perfect for yours. Like,
Yep. No, you gotta have. You absolutely have to have graveyard discretion. Graveyard hate.
It's
Well,
not
no, it's
graveyard
not. It's
hate.
not actually.
It
I'm not casting it from my graveyard. When rebound happens.
no that
Let me see.
it's saying when an instant or sorcery is cast, it's exiled. So it doesn't.
I cast from a graveyard.
No.
Or-
It's not
I thought
even
it
cast
was-
from a graveyard. It's cast.
That's. I'm not sure that's right, but
Hang on.
it's the Dryad, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Rawr. Okay.
Hang on. Ooh. And of course now it's at the bottom.
Of
Like,
course it is.
That's nice.
and
Unknown thing.
the mana I wanted
I feel like I should do
was Dryad
And
being
that offer still
10.
stands, by the way, if you want to like log into your account and play MTG on this or somewhere
Dryad,
downstairs.
Militant.
Yeah.
If an instant or sorcery card would be put into a graveyard
Right.
from anywhere,
Okay,
exile
so
it.
that doesn't bother me because what happens is when you cast something with rebound, instead of putting it into the graveyard, you put it in exile.
That's fine. But
So when it casts the second time and goes to the graveyard, then it would go. They get
Yes.
So I wouldn't be able to recur.
you wouldn't be able to.
I wouldn't be able to keep recurring the Cyclonic Rift over and over again.
Yeah, that'd be great. Hard pass on that. Please let that Dryad be like in my opening hand. I'll just leave her hanging out.
I am going to discard a Temple of the False God because that is stupidly useless in this game, and I need like I don't know a red or a blue.
So start flipping.
Yep. Oh God! All those Temple of Epiphany.
red,
That'll
blue.
do. Shuffle the rest of this shit back in.
Whereas mine, I had no mana. So
And I'm gonna go first because Jayberry killed me first.
Whatever.
I can start with this hand.
Do you have at least 2 of your colors? Do you have 3 of your colors? Okay, then yes, play it.
Yes.
yeah, you're probably fine then.
Commander's the exact not exact opposite, but it never hurts. Like I wouldn't mind a Commander game with 5 or 5 land at least. 6 maybe.
Oh,
a
I've
little
learned to
much,
keep
but-
a hand if
yeah.
it's mostly land at this point.
Yes.
I mean, unless you're
will
playing
play
super
this.
competitive and somebody's doing like a I will kill you in 4 turns deck. But we don't tend to do that here.
Of course not, never.
No, we really don't. It is a weird ass coincidence when that happens.
I mean, if the decks start going to that level,
I
Jibber, do you need some help?
It was the
I
cat
gotta
deck.
get rid of something.
It was the cat deck.
Alright,
that
do
you
I
did
get rid
that
of,
was the first time I'd ever been to her house, and I was like, I just died in 4 turns. Oops, I gotta step my game up.
Oh, you're leaning like you know you have 100 cards and you need to take one thing out.
I have 101 cards. I need to take one thing out.
Gotcha.
Do I take out a Woodland Champion?
What does it do?
Whenever one or more tokens in the battlefield under your control,
how
put
many
that
tokens
plus
are
one,
you
plus
creating?
ones. A few, probably.
Because I must say that.
Evolution Sage.
Yeah, I think that is that the one where every proliferating
Yes.
play land? No, leave that.
Leave
Yeah,
that, but
I
I
should
would
leave
say get rid of this.
Woodland Champion.
Yeah, because if you're not sure how many tokens you're creating, like my deck, this would probably be a good card for it. In fact, I'm going to take a photo of it because
I'm gonna take a photo of it because I
Fine.
want to add it to my fucking deck.
yeah, because I feel like, you know, since I have a lot of tokens in theory that should be coming in, this guy might be good for that, but I
Alright.
would take him out.
All right, I'm good.
Alright. I'm gonna shuffle
Okay. Bio break. Yes.
So now's a good time before we
Yes,
start
let's
our
do
second
that.
game. Do
As
the
we're doing that,
thing
you
with
finish
the
your
stuff.
shuffling, and I will
Yeah.
do the thing with the stuff and the things. So now is the time on Sprockets when we thank our Patreon backers. So, yes, I'm gonna log my ass into our account just so I could read them all off because I have shit for memory.
Yep.
Oh, Command Fest was fucking awesome, by the way. It was a shit ton of fun.
Oh,
So
hey.
I had a really good time. We did some shooting for the new documentary. Jay Berry and FTC got to play all day along with Clover and Forrest. Our friend Forrest was there and a couple other people we knew.
Yep, and we hung out with artists.
We had Hibachi with
Should probably hit log
a
in.
bunch of them. I'm logging in. I'm talking though. It's hard to do two things at once.
We went and had hibachi
What?
with Dave Colombo, with Lars Grant West.
And Lars has some fun stories to tell about his time working in museums.
Yes, he does.
Trying to
and-
paw print.
and-
Yeah.
And Donato Giancola. And all of us crazy people.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the story, Lars, the fun Lars story. So we're gonna thank Banshee. Thank you very much, Banshee, and Clover, and Jordan, and Rochelle, and Secret Weapon.
Yes.
So thank all of you for being our patrons. Spread the word far and wide, because hey, we're fucking fun.
Yeah. And
And-
we're gonna post pictures of the studio soon because that's where some of your money,
We're
most of your money has gone.
Almost done with the
All
studio.
of it. We're almost done with the studio,
I'm
so
super
we'll
happy.
be.
We know that's you, but we weren't sure if you wanted
Yeah,
your name to be
You are.
attached to your screen name.
Yes. Banshee.
All right. So yay. And also, folks, while everyone's watching and commenting, are you really gonna wear the giraffe hat? You're gonna wear the giraffe
gonna
hat.
be
That's
hot.
fucking awesome.
It's giraffe hat
Oh,
time.
I have a.
That really is.
Oh wait, I got a
fucking
hat.
koala
I
hat?
got a cute hat I could wear. Hold on.
awesome. Oh god, is it gonna be hat night?
It's hat stream.
It's good.
All right.
It's gonna
Probably
get warm
doesn't
though
like koala
eventually.
hats.
I'm gonna give up.
Yeah.
It's like-
I can get some weird ass hats.
Oh man, me and the Viking cat at one stream. If you go back and watch certain streams,
Viking
it gets
cat's
weird,
pretty good.
folks.
It gets weird.
This is my Jughead hat.
Jughead.
It's my Jughead
Shut up,
hat.
Archie. It's awesome.
Hat against non-hats.
All right, I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna play a Temple of Epiphany, and I'm gonna scry and pass my turn.
You should go home.
And that works.
Jay Barry, have you been watching Riverdale?
Not.
Not the recent
I
seasons.
really like the first two were interesting, and then like when they put Archie in a maximum security prison and made him fight in a pit, I was like, that's a little
What?
weird. That's a little.
I
that's a
haven't
little
gotten
weird.
that far because I stopped after
that was
I think the
last
second season.
We call it Bad Riverdale. Like, hey, can we watch Bad Riverdale tonight?
The first two seasons were
Right.
solid.
They were good.
And then they stopped
Godzilla.
being high school.
Is it Val's turn now?
Yeah.
Since you just got up
Oh
and
my
left?
god. Are you okay, Val?
Oh, so did you play?
Oh,
Are you done?
did I draw? Yes.
Okay.
Is it?
Jesus. Yes.
Okay. My
No,
turn?
Wait, sorry. Yes. Wait a moment.
All right, you are Goth Cowboy.
Oh my god.
You are now Goth Cowboy.
Goth Cowboy.
Okay, Savage Lands.
And wait,
Pass
wait.
turn.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Shall I be?
It's so bad.
Shall I be?
How did you know I was from the South?
Shall I be movie director? Or shall I be gone fishing?
John Fishing.
Oh god. I hate it so much.
Let's maybe
I'm
have
gone
the people on
fishing.
the stream also choose draw.
I am gone fishing tonight.
Yep, Banshee says fishing.
Alrighty then. Fishing
Fishing
for
for
fun.
fun.
Like 4 times in my
Witch's
entire life.
Oven. Go.
Nice.
Wait for it.
Wishes Oven.
Can I just play like this?
Yes.
There you go.
Witch's Oven.
I
Go.
feel like I should have like my little lures on my hat.
Go, go, go.
Yes.
All right.
Hello, Pyrovok.
Yo.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I
Or is it, since
don't
you
know.
capitalize the O, or is that a 0? I can't tell, like, on her
I'm
restream.
gonna play Clifftop Retreat
So-
past turn.
They're also small, the names.
Which one? Pyrovok.
Yeah,
Pyrov, okay. It's like it's
yeah,
Pyrov.
like,
I think we asked.
okay.
You should have seen the Jasconius Island fish that got away.
So
Poor
the,
island fish.
It was a kraken, baby. It was a kraken.
So what kind of fish live on Whore Island? Oh wait, it's
wow.
the penis fish.
There's no fish on Whore Island.
Yeah. Hopefully the ones that don't smell like that.
There's no fish on Whore Island.
Did you see the headline of or on the news? The fish that they're actually worms, but they look like dicks.
Oh, the big tube fish thing?
Yeah, they look like dicks, and they've like hundreds of them washed up on shore in California or something like that.
Uncomfortable. Oh, in California, that's funny.
Yeah. So there's underwater. There's a new horror movie coming out. I've been watching the things.
Playing a skull clamp.
Oh god, that's
Pass
awful.
turn.
Skull clamp. All right, that's great. That early in the game.
I know the director of Piranha Double D.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry. The title of the movie is Piranha Double D.
Yeah, not a porn.
Not a
Jungle
porn.
Hollow, A Gain of Life, and I passed the turn.
Although, is it one of those ones where, like, oh my goodness,
haven't
my
seen it.
shirt is so
Yeah,
wet?
I'm sure
Like-
it is. I have not seen it.
What's swimming around me while my shirt is so
God.
wet? With my big bosoms.
With my big bosom.
Floating.
I feel like, is there
All right,
fish
we're just gonna start with the leave me the fuck alone, and I'm gonna go fishing behind a ghostly prison. Pass turn.
Is that what can't attack you unless we
2
pay
mana for each
2?
creature.
All right.
So the pillow fort has started to be built.
Leviathan. What Leviathan did you pull? Serpent of Yawning Depths.
Really?
We bring up Serpent of Yawning Depths.
I don't even know what the hell that is.
Dragon Gem apparently cracked one.
Ooh.
Neat.
Ooh, pretty.
Ew.
Nice.
You should
Oh,
put
this is
that
one of the
in
new. This is one of the new Theros cards.
In that.
That's a
Oh.
hole.
Yeah.
Love it.
Oh, I can't wait.
He's
I
the
have to
Elder
follow up
Dinosaur,
with
not
To
any
Jimmy
of
to
those.
get your pack. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an Elder Dinosaur, not any of those.
I definitely didn't know he was a dinosaur.
Yeah, he's a
Yep.
dinosaur. I know.
He's
He
a di-
feels like
yeah.
it should be a serpent.
I
or
know.
A leviathan,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, untap. Upkeep. Draw.
Now I need to find my call.
That's pretty exciting, I have to say, Dragon Gem. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do I start the dickishness this early?
Yes.
I mean, okay.
The games go faster. Do it.
Sure.
Let's do it.
If you make the game go faster, do it.
But it'll make me sad, and then DM's going to come at me.
Love the boat for scale, yeah.
Did you
What?
see Steve Prescott's?
Destroy target enchantment.
You got it.
And then I get 3 sapperlings.
You get 3 sapperlings.
And look, I have 1 mana left open, so I can, like, attach the skull coin.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, I like that.
Those are just Christmas cards. I was like, where are you selling those? Because I want a pack.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
Steve,
no,
Did you
I
talk?
have-
Did you talk to him about doing a logo for
Christmas
us?
cards?
No.
You
He's
should.
very busy right now.
Well, that's
Okay,
great.
so
I talked to him about
attaching,
private commissions.
and
He's
then
very
that's
busy right
gonna die, and then I get
Draw
to draw a
card.
card.
Yep.
So Steve Prescott's making Christmas cards?
Yeah.
now. Yeah, he posted on Instagram so he'd like.
Pass her.
He made them like for himself, and I was like, can I?
I
get
need
in
to
on
follow
buying
him.
Some of those.
Can I see?
Please on the Instagrams.
Do I want to do that now?
Leyline
Ooh,
Prowler.
Nice.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's pretty cool.
So he just posted those, and I was like, if you're
I see.
selling Christmas cards, I will buy a pack.
Nice,
Yes.
I want it. I
don't
want
know if
it.
they're low enough, but
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
I think if
What'd
you
you
just give him your
play?
address,
Ooh.
he'll send you
Leyline
one.
Prowler.
Nice.
I sell
A
like
Death Touch,
160
Life
Christmas cards a year
Linky,
now.
Adam, and
So I'm always
a
looking for cool
Duder.
stuff. So like, if he wants to
It's
print
so
off
cute.
like 20,
Yes.
I'll pay for a pack.
Pass turn.
She has a 2/3 lifelink death touch mana.
Mana Mika.
Yeah. I don't care.
Nightmare
I don't
Beast.
care. Somebody already started fucking with me, so. Commander Sphere, pass turn.
I like how you're like, fuck it, Commander Sphere.
Yeah. Fuck you, Commander Sphere.
I'm going to cut you, Commander Sphere.
Finally, a black mana.
I thought you said you started the game with it.
Did special one. I think I'm allergic to your hat. So I'm like, not gonna stop sneezing anytime soon.
Ooh,
Godzilla.
it's just leather.
Godzilla.
I'm allergic to everything.
You're allergic to leather? That would be awful. You need tissue?
No,
You sure?
I just sneezy.
So I actually took the 7 dwarves in my Depala
I knew
deck,
that was
and
gonna be
I
your
I actually wrote Sneezy, Dopey, Doc on each
That
one of the
was funny.
cards. Yeah.
Oh, I should name mine.
You know what?
But I
now
can't
that you
name
took
mine
yours off. 'Cause It's making my head hot.
They're giving up on the hat
Oh,
stream.
Jesus.
It's making my head hot.
We got this.
You guys can be the.
we're the cool side.
You can be the
hat.
the hat side of the table.
I don't. So I wouldn't say cool too hard because I'm wearing a giraffe. Like.
Oh wait, hold on.
Hey, giraffes are really in right now.
I did not play my 4th land.
Christmas llamas are really in right now.
Sorry, Steam Vent tapped.
Oh, you went first, right?
Jesus. Ooh, death grader.
What's that? Do?
Whenever another creature dies, you gain life, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Another creature
Yes.
in general?
Look
Yep.
at that little boat.
Great. So when my saprolings
Yep.
keep dying.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm done.
And hey, look, it's a Donato.
Is that?
Yep.
Oh, nice.
How did I never know that?
Oh no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Dominic
It's not.
Domingo.
It's
Yeah,
not
it's
Do-
not-
that's not a Donato.
My fault.
Untap.
I can't see because my eyelids have water.
The heat did just kick on, and the cat has entered some sort of weird shedding mode because we had the.
I am
The cleaning
for my
people came on
land,
Tuesday,
I'm
and
going
there's
to
cat hair
play,
everywhere again.
I think you need to maybe change the settings on your cat from
Yeah, change the
away
settings
from
on the
cat
cat.
shedding
I'm
mode.
going to play a Windbrisk.
Sure, and you
Heights.
hide away.
Let's see.
Hide away!
The top 4.
Baby
I like
sweat.
this song. Damn it. It's not good. So the exile card just happens? Doesn't matter what it is?
You could fail to find something. I mean, let's read it. Windbrisk Heights.
Yeah. It says exile 1 and then put the rest on the bottom.
Yeah, so you must.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
And if you attack with 3 or more creatures, you get to play it for 1 white. Well, 1 white and tapping that.
Yeah, and that's fine.
It's tough. Man, Omar Ryan's done so few cards, and they're always gorgeous.
Yeah.
He really was the perfect choice for a bunch of those storybook cards, or whatever they're called, the story cards in Eldring.
Yeah.
The little Goldilocks.
Yeah, Flaxen Intruder. I love that.
My favorite is the one of the girl holding like the puppy that
Yeah.
gets reposted as a meme, like when you have dyslexia and you write your letter to Satan instead of Santa.
Pinta?
The girl's holding the puppy.
Did you see the post I made today about the people that wrote the dyslexic D&D character sheets?
Yeah.
I
It's
reposted that
gorgeous.
in like 2
Excellent.
Past turn.
Okay.
I like those a lot more. Like,
See how I'm
I
not
like D&D,
killing my
so-
saprolink as much as I want to.
Like half the people I know who play D&D were looking at it going, yeah, I'm going to use those.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, and it's color coded. Did you notice that?
Oh, I didn't notice it was color coded.
Yeah.
That's even better.
So, as someone who has certain challenges,
I'm having an allergy.
No, I mean on your
I'm actually talking about allergies.
Ooh, what did you play?
Catacomb Sifter.
Oh, geez.
Did you? Oh, and you make a little thingy, right?
Yeah, I make a deuter. Eldrazi
it's not a card
Scion.
you see every day, so
Eldrazi Scion, which I don't have any Eldrazi tokens in this
there's
yet.
some scions in there. It's under E.
Yeah.
What did you tap for that? Okay, 3. There we go.
Sorry,
I
Catacomb.
was like, I can count up
Did
to
I?
one.
Wait, wrong color. My bad.
Okay.
I got the wrong color in. Thank you.
So it's a 2/3 devoid, and whenever the creature you control dies, you scry. The scry is good.
Spawn.
This cry is good.
Especially when the one is
Come back forward
sacrifice
then,
a
because the scions
scion.
would be before it.
Yeah, I wonder why some say spawn and when some say scion.
Oh, the spawns are 1/1s and the scions are 0/1s.
Ah. there
Or
we
wait,
go.
the scions are 1/1s and the spawns
Yes.
are 0/1s.
Yeah. So there's my scion.
Pyrovok, you work in a library?
Oh, so do I.
Yeah.
That's
I work
awesome.
in a library.
He actually has a good story. 2 guys
Nice.
playing Magic.
Sometimes,
story is
sometimes
a-
people in my library play Pokemon. Actually,
Cool.
I've never seen them play Magic. Well, actually, I have seen them play Magic, but that's down in the meeting room. Anyway,
Am up?
do you have any creatures?
Not a thing.
Okay, you don't. You
I
have
do.
2 saprolings.
And she has a 1/1 that anything dies, she gains life.
Yeah.
So I vote kill for that.
I haven't done anything yet.
Well, I can. So how big is that?
It's a 1/1.
It's a 1/1.
But she does have mana open.
Yeah.
So do I.
Like pointing it out.
You don't have
Do you?
mana
Oh,
open.
command sphere 1.
I have 3.
That is Path to Exile and Swords to Plowshare mana.
Right.
Fair.
And Bolt mana, but probably not in this deck.
It's coming at you because like right now I view you as a threat.
Really?
You
Am
are
I
the
gonna
threat.
have to
A
use
2/3.
things?
You literally have a
Early.
4-card draw engine sitting in play right now.
I didn't want to have to
A
spend this
2/3.
on someone.
Then don't save it for something worse. Because trust me, there are worse things.
Yes, but like I want to be hateful because someone's attacking me.
Please go. Please
Yep.
do the thing.
Fine, I'll take 2
All right, I gained 2 life.
Done.
begrudgingly.
I'm saying you could
Begrudgingly.
still done your thing. Like
No.
I'm not gonna be resentful.
You
Everyone
say
in
that
Magic
now.
has to
Pass
die.
it. I'm trying to be a better person, so I'm not gonna be resentful.
Yep, we're all playing Magic.
What kind of
Yeah.
library do you work in,
Legit.
Pyrobuck? I'm curious. What kind of library? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm gonna play a Goblin Electromancer.
What does that do?
Instants and sorceries cost 1 less for me.
How big is it?
2/2.
Okay.
That's it. And Sabine's Reclamation. It brings back a Ghostly Prison. Fast turn.
Can I read that card?
And if I cast it from my graveyard, I get 2 copies of it.
Oh, good. So you have to find a way to cast it from your
Well, it
graveyard.
has flashback.
Flashback.
Oh.
What's the flashback cost?
But there's nothing in your graveyard currently.
No, there's nothing in my graveyard right now. But here's the card we're talking about. Sabine's
Yeah,
Reclamation.
you kind of have to be better about pulling that up and talking about it.
So it was only available in the deck that came
Yeah.
with the Planeswalker.
Yeah, the
or it came
Sabine
with
deck.
the
The
creature.
Savine deck.
Yeah.
That's not good.
And I 0. And actually, it only costs 2.
Why does it only cost 2?
Because the Goblin Electromancer makes my instants and sorceries 1 less.
Okay.
Can you pull that up?
Sure.
I bet it's cool art.
It is. I'll bet you know who did it.
Do it?
Siphon Flash.
Yep,
What
that's
does
you
that
too.
do?
Other.
Oh, other. Yep.
What
All
is
right,
it?
there goes my creature. Everybody
Siphon
sack a
Flash?
creature.
Okay.
So let me bring up the Siphon Flesh.
So, can you do equip and then sack?
You can't equip it on somebody else's turn.
Unless, there's some that you can though.
Anything that says, you may play spell. Well, no, because that's an ability. I don't think there's other things that let you do that. There are certain equipment that have a cost instead of an equip cost.
I see.
So whenever
Most-
another creature
yeah.
I control dies, I scry.
Active duty. Got it.
So I'm gonna scry. Work on a learning
Alright,
resource
I'm
center.
done.
Oh, okay.
If you're at NIH, you're close.
Cool. You were going to pull up the thing that just went for you though.
Savine? Well, the thing that I just sacrificed?
Yeah. It pains
one.
me that I'm doing this, but I kind of want the card draws. At the end of her turn, I'm going to use the as
Abzan.
charm to draw 2 cards and lose 2 life.
Yep.
Because I want the 2 cards. Okay, that's a thing.
Yeah, I usually see that used for the exile creature, but
Yeah, like,
hey, they're all useful. Every one of those is a useful mode.
the 2 cards seemed better.
I used to go
At
to
the
Walter
moment.
Reed all the time with my dad to see the babies in jars. Because they used to have
Aw.
that whole
Yeah, they-
museum. And I was like 17 or something. My dad looks at me and he's like, "Why are you so weird?" I was
I
like, "Maybe because you took me to see babies in jars." And I
Jars.
was like 3 years old. We used to go
Seriously.
all the time because he used to work in NIH.
I still can't get this.
I'm
thing to
gonna
work,
fix that right
and
now.
I already unplugged it and plugged it in a different one.
It might actually be a button on there.
Oh.
So let's see if we can reset this to like, I don't know. Nope. Where did you put it?
In the other one that it's next to.
Let's put it right here.
Nope. Nope. There we go.
There you go. You got it.
There we go.
All right, Jayberry can now control our views when I forget.
Yes.
Speaking of Riverdale, we bought this for the dog.
Jingle jingle.
We had to.
Oh, that's
For
awesome.
dog treats.
Nice.
We called the dog Indiana.
I want to do
magic
this.
art. But I don't know where it's going.
It's not useful yet. Or is it?
That came in.
Oh, nice. You got a print of the, was it Spectral Wolf? Spirit Wolf.
Stuart. So we've got that one. We have the token wolf booth hanging over the bed.
Banshee, is audio still gone?
Thing,
Is that because you hit something on here?
I don't know.
Playing a mountain, I'm going to pay the 4 and play
Okay, good.
my
All right.
Commander Tana. So
Yep.
she's a 2/2 with trample. When she deals combat damage, I create a Sapperling token.
Got
but
it, thank
then-
you.
Do I want the card for the Sapperling that I have? You know what? Fine. It's early. Yes. I'm
Did you
killing
gain
a
3 life last turn when
I
we all said?
did.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went ahead,
keeping up
skull
with the
clamp the Sapperling,
Yeah, look at you keeping up with shit.
and I get to draw the card. I'm glad I did that because that would have been annoying and past turn.
Okay.
So, the company that I was working with for one of my clients for the last couple of years, they're exiting, and the deal was finally signed today. And I had such a huge relief that I had to stop lying to all of the employees of the company about what was going on.
Oh, jeez. That's always...
Yeah, but the good thing is they're all getting a good chunk of money, so that makes me happy.
That's good.
I had to jiggle the handle. I don't even want to know.
I like that. Just
They're starting to do a lot more of those on playmats where they tape the edge, because a lot of them start to like rip
Yeah.
up at the edge.
Or they don't like to stay flat.
yeah.
Well, the problem with this now is like if you ever store it not flat, it holds it. So it's double-edged sword.
Yeah.
All right. One. Okay. 1 red. 2,
So you can see the command fest.
3,
It really was cool. I'm sorry you couldn't make
4,
it.
5.
Terrible migraine.
Yeah, I'm so
4
sorry.
Corvold. When he comes
Oh, nice.
in, I have to sack another permanent. I'll sack my oven.
And you put a counter.
And I put a counter on him
And draw a
Yup.
card.
and draw a card.
Yeah, that card draw engine's something terrible in that deck.
Yeah. Okay.
But now, though, she still needs, like, sack a permanent type thing.
Right, but I mean, she sacks a permanent and attacks, and oh, are you scrying
He
when you
doesn't
sack
have
permanents
haste.
too? Sack creatures.
Oh yeah.
So
Uh,
get your scry. So
So
basically,
this would have been my scry.
yeah. Do you want that or do
Wait,
you want something?
how
else?
does she have a scry?
Whenever a creature she can roll dice, she
Oh, that
scries.
one, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great addition
So
to
you
that deck.
scry and then...
Oh yeah, I'll put that on the bottom.
Yeah, so that's a good combination.
Yup.
Okay. And you have a ghostly prison. You have stuff.
3
you have
zombies
a
and a
thing.
and a
Pass
one.
turn.
All right. Sorry, I burnt fish. Not good.
Ooh, gross.
Thanks for sharing.
Oh, shush you.
You shush.
All right, I'm gonna play a Grand Abolisher.
Yes.
What's that?
During my turn, opponents may not cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments during my turn. It's basically I'm kind of insulated during my turn. Grand. Yep. I love it. It's a very Orzhov card.
Yeah.
Your suppositions and superstitions and mumbling are useless chaff before my righteousness. And
Oh, I wanted to read the.
I'm also
flavor.
going to play a Secrets of the Dead.
Oh.
Let me bring that up because you'll need to know what that does too.
Yep.
Whenever you cast a spell from my graveyard, whenever I cast a spell from my graveyard, I draw a card.
That's not good.
Oh, so the flavor
That's true.
text on Witch's Oven is the wafting smells are both scrumptious and suspicious.
Can I see the one card?
Ghostly or
The new one.
Uncomfortable.
secrets?
The two new ones.
Both of the things you just played.
And
Doesn't
what?
you have 5?
I have one, 2 white, and 3.
Okay. Because sometimes you can't count.
Sometimes I can't count.
Lots of times I can't count.
I'm sorry, what?
Basically.
Black math.
Black math is hard.
But you do black
This
magic
is
math.
not black math, though.
Yeah, this is just
Mana
my
in general.
inability to count properly. As soon as it hits like 7, it gets white.
Yeah, you're like,
As soon as it goes past the one hand.
you're like, wait a second here. This is a trick.
Yeah, that's a thing.
We'll just create a rig with like extra hands just sitting on a stick, and you can just keep counting fingers as we go
Oh god,
along.
that was freaky. Donna posted it, Lynch. The picture of the woman waving with a little plastic hand on each of her fingers.
Yeah.
Ah, it
Nice.
just freaked me out.
I've definitely done that before. It's hard to resist when you can. So good.
Now I want to buy those.
Yeah, we should
And
do
then
it.
just like, we'll just have a bag of them under here. We just start putting them on our fingers while they're taking their turn and just be like, look, Ma!
And then play that way, like you're holding the
and
cards.
Hold
Do you
on.
wanna give us
There's a
points?
Liliana coming in.
Do you want to give us points to do that?
Oh, it's that Liliana. I love her.
That's Majesty, right?
Yep. She's fantastic.
Alright. Create a 2/2.
And top 2 cards in the graveyard.
Nice. She is
Unless you're
perfect
taking
in
her
green.
down, which I don't think you are.
Why would you?
Because you have nothing in your graveyard to return. Yep.
Increasing ambition on a great kind of news.
Oh, good night, Pyro. Sorry
Good night,
if we missed
Pyro.
you. Sorry for missing. Goodbye.
Sleep well, and we will see you next Thursday. And happy holidays.
Yes. Uh-oh. That's work.
No work, only play.
Right. I'm done.
Okay.
You have 3 zombies. You should go somewhere with them.
I'm interested in seeing what happens.
Don't you actually have 4? Because when you ticked up Liliana, you should have gotten a zombie.
Yep.
Her where I can see her, and it's just all
Aw,
fucking glare.
See, somebody's not up on all of their triggers.
Okay, so what are you
Just
doing there?
Some of the triggers.
Are you still passing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if all things go according to plan, your boy and I will have the garage ready, the studio ready before D&D on Saturday.
Oh shit.
Yo.
Oh, I'm not here next week, by the way.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
I just keep forgetting that Christmas is like next week.
Day after, you're not going to be around the day after?
No,
Gotcha.
I'll try back.
Oh, interesting.
And I think we've come to the conclusion that the week after that, the week of MagFest, that we're not going to do the Thursday, but we'll be streaming Saturday night from MagFest.
That makes sense.
So, and that way we can have a bunny with us.
A bunny!
Funny if you're watching. Yeah, somebody needs to clip
Clip
that.
that.
I don't know if I can do that on this.
We can do it later.
I doubt it, but yeah, no. Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
Eh.
What am I doing with my life?
Other way? Let's try it. Come on, you get to see another word called marker.
That's the same way. That's the same way.
Oh,
The other way. The other way.
I'm sorry, what? This way, right? This way, yeah?
That way.
No, the other way.
The backslash. No, wait, that's forward. Ah!
Welcome to our stream, fuckers.
I'm so sorry. Not sorry.
We're not sorry.
Make friends through Swift gameplay.
Already? Die in a fire. Holy Ghost!
High five.
You know that's gonna stick. Like we're all gonna.
I know. That's gonna be the thing. Well, I
You haven't heard the
have
story
I
yet,
have
so
I have a
wait,
story
wait.
to
Yeah,
tell you
not
later
yet.
off the
Yeah.
stream.
Not yet.
Off the stream.
It's not awful. It's just
It's just
work-related.
funny.
And we don't want anybody to be freaky and whatever.
But it's also kind of funny.
Jeez.
Yeah, don't make it weird, folks.
Oh, it's already fucking weird.
Fair.
I'm weird. You're weird.
Look around the
Yeah.
fucking table.
You're wearing a giraffe hat.
I am. That I am.
You're wearing a fuzzy colored jacket in a
Killed-
70-degree
I killed
house.
the Muppets for this.
Which one?
All of them.
Yeah.
And then you dyed them black.
Yeah.
Because
I can't actually think of a black.
Are any of the Muppets actually black fur?
Not
this
that I
is,
can.
This is Philip the goat.
Philip the goat.
Philip the goat? Oh.
Black Philip. No, I've got a box full of monster fur at home.
Cool.
I keep these
I'll
guys
do
here.
that.
So I sent my animating fairy
How
to get
big
framed.
is your stuff?
That'd be cool.
The sketch.
I literally have a 2/2 creature.
2/2.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's the terrible one that says you can't do anything on his turn.
Right, and I'm not gonna block with it. Go ahead and hit me.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Oh, I should've
like
saw you.
literally not
Well,
trying
you
to be a
couldn't.
jerk, but I need my commander to do things.
Right, if you
That's
want
why I
to.
looked over and was like, hey, I can't pay
Like-
that.
If you want to do something
Doing
during your,
things
you
would
can
be
either do
great.
something or attack
Yeah.
me. Right.
Basically.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
With that ghostly
I think I have
prisoner
7.
play.
Great. Keeping
And
that.
by the way, I love this game because even though I've got a bunch of instants and sorceries that recur, you are the fucking Bazooka Bog target.
Yep. It's true.
I'm doing this thing. I'm tapping 2. I'm coming at you with my commander, who is a 2/2 with trample. And I get sapperlings.
Yeah, I'll kill your commander with that.
Then I'm going to do a Celestium Charm, which gives her +2/+2.
Sure.
So I still get 2 sapperlings.
No, you don't. Didn't do combat damage to me.
Trample.
Oh, with trample. Yes, you do get
So
2
now
sapperlings.
she's a 4/4.
There you go. Because there couldn't possibly be a way to recur that from my graveyard.
I,
I hate it.
you know,
At least it's in your
I
graveyard.
I warned you. I just wanted the sapperlings.
no, you did. Like literally, the only shitty things you've done this game have been to me. I just thought I'd share that.
It's because
You
Can
could have
I-
done that way.
Can I
I
do some
love you.
shitty things?
Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
do it. Do shitty.
Well, I don't know.
Is
She
my
hasn't
turn?
finished her turn yet.
Pass her.
We'll see.
I'm keeping that open for
Right.
reasons
I don't.
and
I don't.
stuff.
I haven't attacked anybody this game. I don't really plan to.
That was me last week, and I still fuck shit up.
Yeah. I mean, this deck isn't gonna win by attacking people with creatures.
No, you're just gonna like throw shit at us.
Yes. I'm gonna burn the world.
Burn it.
Okay.
Burn it.
Burn it.
Burn it.
Burn it all.
Burn it.
I burn it all.
Burn it. Pawn of Ulamog?
Pawn. Yep.
What does that do?
Oh, it's awesome.
Whenever it or another non-token creature in control dies, I
She
create
gets
a 0/1
another-
Eldrazi spawn. This is
Yep.
the 0/1.
Yeah. But when
makes
you
sense.
sack things and things
Mm-hmm.
happen, and yeah.
I'm also gonna sack my Jund Panorama.
Really? You sack the land.
Yeah, to bump Corvold up.
Nice.
How are you
Well,
sacking it?
He has to attack first.
Oh.
You have to declare it as an attacker.
And you have to have
Right.
a sack outlet. Because he doesn't sack things.
Yeah, he does. You have to sacrifice it when you declare it as an attacker.
No.
When it comes in
Oh,
or
or
is declared.
attacks.
Yeah.
Jund Panorama allows me to pay 1 to sack it.
Oh,
I'm
there you
sorry.
go.
I thought it was the red, green, white, or the red, green, blue Savage Lands that
Okay.
you were sacking.
Sorry,
to.
I was.
My
Alright.
fault.
I'm sacking a land because it allows me to.
Yes.
I'm
You're paying
gonna
the
go
ability.
search for a thing.
Here, let me bring that up. Sorry, I thought it was literally the 3-color land. It's this one.
Yeah. Hold up.
I have it in Lord Windgrace.
I'm gonna put in a mountain.
Ooh. That should go in Giprog.
Yeah, I mean, if you're being super... People will argue about whether, since the fact that it says mountain on it, it doesn't have the red mana symbol.
Oh, you're right.
But technically you can play it. But people will give you shit for it. Like,
Oh.
it does not have a red mana symbol on it.
It doesn't.
Right. It's the same reason a lot of really high-end commander decks play with all the fetch lands that fetch for something you can't possibly put in the deck. Anyway.
I don't want drama. So I probably won't play with it.
Alright. Okay.
Please come at me.
Is that you?
Sure.
I mean,
Why?
I've got that open. Like,
Okay. I'm not gonna, since you're...
I'm excited about it.
I would really like to see a 6/6 Corvald kill Liliana.
Oh, right.
That's
I would
also,
Planeswalker.
that's also probably what's gonna happen.
I would really like to see that happen.
But she also does have.
see, I'm sorry I
four
reminded her
TCF
about that.
zombies.
Do they fly?
No,
Then it doesn't matter.
that's right. They don't fly. Never mind.
What?
Then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Alright, shuffled.
Because I was like, there's, you know.
Move to combat.
So let's see.
So
Corvald is.
is going
You gotta
to
sack something.
Yeah, I'm gonna sack the Pawn of Ulamog.
But it gets.
You don't want to sack the ley line? That gives you the other token that you can sack next turn. If you sack the ley line Prowler, you need the mana maybe.
I need the mana.
She already.
I'm choosing Pawn of Ulamog.
Okay.
Whenever it dies, I get an Eldrazi spawn. I'll
Yep.
deal with that in a second.
Yep.
You get to scry too.
And then I get to scry 1.
So you've declared the attack. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I said 2, I meant TOO.
Oh. Got it.
Okay, got it.
Sorry.
Got it. Sorry. Yeah. Ah. Okay, so this goes up to 3.
So it's a 7.
So it's a 7/7 coming at Liliana. And I scry.
And
you
it
hit your
flies.
triggers off this when creatures die? She just sacked a creature.
Just now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah, I guess so. Wait, I
Those homonyms!
scry, and then I draw, so I'll keep this.
Hello, Samurai
Okay.
Dance Rules.
And
So what kind of...
Oh man, that's a great name.
I agree.
then I pass my turn, and I gotta get my Eldrazi
What kind
Scion.
of Liliana?
A 7/7 flyer.
Her commander.
Kills it. Alright, I am up.
Yes.
Untap, upkeep, draw.
I don't get a 10/10 Eldrazi. There's a Scion. Wait, is it the right one?
Oh, what do I want to do, man?
I don't know.
Fine.
Commander's
I think
already.
I'm just gonna play my commander.
What does he do again? Can you bring him
Yeah,
back?
bring it up
Savine.
again.
Savine.
Spawn.
Prevent all? I'll just bring it up.
Spawn.
That, yes, the Jun Panorama is my
Yep.
commander.
It's your one.
Alright, prevent all damage that will be dealt to Savine. And whenever you cast first instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard each turn, copy it. And I'm gonna pass my turn.
He is so fabulous.
He is. It does my heart good, too, to see, like, actually effective commanders as people of color.
He is.
Because, we need another blonde white guy. Right.
As much as I like Soren, come on. Actually, he can't even be a commander, so never mind. There
Right.
isn't a Soren that can be a commander.
That is correct.
I can think of.
Oh, you're playing the Savine deck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah, shit.
Basically.
I did mention it several times.
He did.
I was busy,
You were busy
dealing with my
daydreaming.
deck. Can you bring him up? I'm sorry, one more
Sure.
time. Okay.
The best memories are worth reliving.
Okay, got it.
Nice.
What's that?
Sanitarium skeleton.
Okay. So what you doing now?
Commander's in. Nice. Alright, so when Verena enters, what happens when she enters?
Whenever I attack with one or more zombies, draw them many cards, then discard them many cards, you
Yep.
get that much life.
You
So
got it.
Nothing happens on enter.
Got it.
Are you going into combat? Yes.
I'll go Jayberry's where the 2 zombies.
2/2/2 zombies going after you, Jayberry.
Two zombies.
Just
I block them and kill them,
Okay.
and they mine stay.
Yep. You draw 2,
Do I gain life?
discard 2, and
Blocking?
Is it lifelink?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is life.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you gain 2 life.
2 life.
Alright.
It's not good.
And she just wanted to trigger draw 2, discard
That's
2,
fair.
gain 2 life.
Oh, fuck, I have so many good cards in that. Yeah.
Discard the stuff that you can get back. If there's anything you can get back, discard it.
Does she have to discard?
Yeah, she has to draw and discard equal to the... Oh god, you discarded a Plaguecrafter in Kalatos?
I did.
Fuck!
Oh wow. So in her hand, there's
I
gotta
know.
be.
Not great.
Are you done? Okay. Untap.
Maybe I should put these back in.
That's a thing.
Now. Should I put back the Avatar of
So,
Discord, Servo Schematic,
how many of the
Warzone,
2
and
zombie
Force
tokens?
back in this deck?
Skeleton, Verena. Is you still getting all your triggers off this? Okay.
Or a token stuff though.
That's why you're at 48. Right. And then you've got 2 Saprolings, your commander, and... Alright. Corvat is going to be a huge fucking problem. Corval, how do I say it?
Corvold.
Corvold. That's gonna be
His
that.
flavor text is transformed at his own wedding. He promptly ate the banquet, the gifts, and the guests.
Nice.
Remember when we first played it, we were like trying to figure out if he ate the wife. So apparently, if she was a guest at the wedding, so
He ate everybody.
yep,
What is he?
He's a dragon.
He's a dragon noble. He's cursed.
he's cursed. So he was a noble turned into a dragon.
Yep.
Okay.
Poor,
let's bring him
poor
up.
guy at his own wedding.
He was he was one of the commanders from the Brawl decks that they put out.
Yeah.
KORVO or A.
KORVOLD.
There he is.
Dragon.
Yeah.
1, 2,
A very
3,
human-looking dragon.
4, 5.
Yeah.
Get them.
5. Okay. 5.
Cursed by the Fae.
Yeah, all the Fae suck. You know why? Because they're lawyers.
What?
Something.
Does
Something.
not compute.
I'm playing.
Exactly. Surely the dragon will make more jobs for the peasants.
I'm playing my Ravos.
Got it.
So now my creatures have +1/+1.
Yep.
I don't have anything in my graveyard, so his second ability doesn't kind of tick off yet.
Yeah.
Because when...
Yeah, that's upkeep anyway.
Yep. Oh, what am I doing with my life?
Making poor magic choices.
I'm sure.
Probably.
I'm good at that.
I'm good at that too. We can both be good at it together.
We can both make poor choices together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that way leads to like waking up in Tijuana.
Not when we're playing Magic at your
Oh
house.
yeah, okay, all right.
I think. I hope.
I think.
I hope.
I think. I don't like to kill.
Samurai would like to know if you are running Burnt Offering in Corvold.
You know what?
What is it?
Pass
I'm
turn.
not sure.
It's awesome.
Now I want to know.
Oh my god.
Wow.
That card didn't come up when I was building this
Yeah.
somehow.
Pass turn.
Yep.
And if you can,
Untapped,
I mean, it's old as shit. I mean, literally, the card is from
93, because I remember. seeing
Ice
that
Age.
card.
Oh, right. No, it says at the bottom of the card, 1995.
Yeah.
Wow.
I started playing Run Ice Age.
Yep.
Alright.
Because I'm old.
Alright.
Shut your whore mouth.
Correct your home. Poor Island.
She's literally like, I'm old.
Comparatively.
Fucking baby.
Wait, who said they're old?
Me.
Val.
Oh.
I said I started playing Magic in 93.
You're old compared to Jake.
We're all old compared to Jake.
I mean,
Taboo age play what?
Not wrong. What? Shut up.
Turns out you don't need weird fetishes when you're in healthy relationships, so.
Oh my
But
god.
they're still fun.
Mrs. Robinson.
Oh, what a draw my line there.
One red,
Mhm.
2 red.
What are you playing over there?
Whatever I want.
With 2 red.
3 mana total.
Yup.
Timbergorge came in tapped.
Yeah.
Squeeze!
Squeeze!
The Immortal!
Yep. The Infinite Sack Outlet.
The Infinite Sack Outlet!
Oh,
No.
pull that up. I might need to die.
And a Bitter Blossom.
Yeah, that's the bigger problem. They're both problems.
My biggest regret so far in Magic Samurai Dance Rules is having a Black Lotus and not knowing where I put it, because I put it in a safe place.
Yeah, that's nutty.
We'll find it one day.
Bitter
This is
Blossom.
getting organized.
Yeah. So they're both fucking problems. Are you done?
So,
No.
she hasn't attacked yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not getting attacked.
Although, what are you sacking when you...
Yeah. Probably
Squee.
Squee.
Fair.
Probably Squee.
Probably.
All right. So still have to pay 2 over there, right?
I'm literally having whatever.
She doesn't have 2 to pay.
I do have
She
2
does.
to
She
pay.
can sacrifice the
I
thing.
can sack
Oh,
my Eldrazi
okay.
spawn. I sack my Eldrazi spawn for 1. That ticks up Corvold.
Yo.
And then I tap the other to
2.
be able to attack you.
Yep.
So
Sacrifice another permanent when
I
you attack.
sack Squee.
Alright, scry twice.
Oh, right. No.
Scry
No,
look
once.
Well, you sacked 2
2.
creatures. Oh, non-token
Yeah,
creatures?
but she looks
Sack-
at the first one,
Yeah.
decides what she wants
Right.
to do.
And then looks at the second one, decides
Yeah.
what she
It's
wants.
it's a creature.
It's
So
any creature and
yeah,
not non-token?
so-
Yeah.
So creature and
Tokens are creatures.
yeah. So yeah, I guess that.
But
does
you
count.
first scry 1. You don't look
Okay,
at 2
scry
cards.
one,
Yep.
Yeah.
Because if you want to keep that one, the second one's not relevant.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna keep that.
Then you keep it. Because you
And
scry
then I
again
draw
and
it.
decide to keep it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So
Oh,
yes.
wait, no. Because she's not wrong. She scries, and then she draws, and then she gets to scry again.
Oh yeah.
Right?
So whenever
Yeah,
I
she
sack a
accepts.
Yeah,
permanent
because you sacked it for the mono.
Yeah.
and draw a card,
Yeah.
Yep.
so I draw 2 cards.
Yeah, you'll be drawing 2 cards.
So
Right.
now scry again.
Try again.
Top?
Yeah, I'll keep
Okay.
it and draw. All right, and then Corvold's coming at you. It's a 9/9 flying.
I take 9.
Ow.
Commander.
Ow!
I told you! Corval's a kill on sight!
Pass turn.
Alright. Untap, upkeep, draw. Play an Ash Baron, just play it. There we go, that helps. 2. I'm gonna play Cackling Drake.
What does that do?
It blocks Corvold.
Fair.
And what else does it do?
and draws me a card. And it has power equal to number of instants in my graveyard, which is 1. It is a 1/4 flyer.
Okay.
I'm a pass turn.
Okay.
And you have a plain and a colorless?
Yep. Because I
What
needed.
does that colorless do?
And
It's nothing. I could have basic land cycled it for 1, but I needed the mono.
Yawgmoth and Bolus's Citadel are bonkers and Corvold.
Yes, they are.
Let me see. Which Yawgmoth? Yawgmoth what?
Just.
Yeah.
Let's do boluses.
Citadel.
So here's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Anytime you can look at the top, right? So you know what you're gonna draw.
Yeah.
If you have other things to let you scry, you can kind of jig it around, and you can sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. If you do that, you kill somebody immediately with Corvold. Literally, you're just like, oh, I'll sacrifice all my lands, and guess what? Corvold kills somebody.
Wow. No, it's each opponent loses 10 life, and
Yeah, but
then I have to attack.
You
with
sacrificed 10 permanents and
Yeah.
put 10 counters on Corvold.
Corvold. Yeah.
Like,
So like, who
Yikes.
cares if you sack all your
Wow.
lands?
Well, if he starts as a 4/4, then
Oh,
it's only
sacrifice 10
14,
non-land
14. Yeah.
But I mean, it's good. It's very good in that deck.
I'd have to have something in here.
tokens. More tokens.
Yeah, Saprolings.
I'd have to have more token generation.
I would have gone, actually, with the Corvold deck, I would have gone more Saprolings than Eldrazi Scions, but...
Well, so the things that I took out of this, were not even not even Saproling tokens. It was like,
where's the Terran
What did you
position?
do?
That thing.
It was Zombie Army.
So-
Zombie
yeah,
Army
okay.
was in. A
Ooh.
lot of Zombie Army generation was in here.
That guy's in my Petro deck,
Yeah.
I
Pay one
think.
life,
It's
sack
Ed
another
Slowman.
creature,
From games and stuff.
put a
It's Ed.
-1/-1 counter up to one target creature,
know.
and draw a card.
Untap.
Yeah. Discard a card, proliferate. Oh!
Yeah.
Oh! I have one of those too.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's...
Yikes.
Oh.
So yeah, I'd have to put Saproling token generation in here for that to work, and
Anybody want to
then
do from the
Yawgmoth.
kitchen? Who brought holiday cookies and what's in it?
It's empty.
Ah, damn
Is it cookies or?
You brought holiday cookies in an like a holiday cookie tin with nothing in it.
Yes! Because I was going to reuse it for something, and it would just happen to be in the bag full of my Magic cards. Sorry. It was the only bag I had at the time. I've eaten enough holiday cookies this week. Thank you very much.
You see, you want some more of the monkey shoulders?
No.
To get Citadel,
Not yet.
Oh. That's crazy.
Let's see. I played a Rogue's Passage.
Yay!
I am tapping the
And paying 4?
Rogue's Passage and paying 4. To attack with my commander, who's a 2/2 at you, Jayberry.
Okay. So when it deals combat damage to a player, you create 2 Saprolings.
I was
Yes.
gonna give you
Okay.
something better, but
And
Turns out this,
how many cards do I have?
bought that for
1,
iPhone.
2,
So bad.
3,
Pretty
4,
fantastic.
5, 6. You know what? And I'm gonna pay the 1 to attach this and gain a life because I have a Saproling die. And I get to draw a card. Wait,
Draw 2 cards.
2. I've been
doing
failing
this
at
long?
this shit.
Oh god.
No.
Well,
2.
you can't take it back
4,
now,
That's
but-
fine. 5, 6, 7, 8.
now you have too many cards in hand anyway.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but
Oh well. Can you play anything else for 2? So you don't have to. Or you could just, equip something else again and draw 2 more cards.
no. There's a reason that mana's open.
Alright.
I don't wanna
wanna
lose
know
that
that
reason. You know what? Fine. Fuck it.
That's a 3/3.
Oh, it is
another-
a 3/3? Oh, right. You're right.
another
I'm going to
Saproling.
discard the Forsaken Sanctuary. Pass turn.
Untap. Upkeep. I get a fairy.
lose a life.
I know. I'll get a black fairy and lose a life. Fairy rogue. A fairy rogue.
What did I do my adapter? If you can find an adapter, use these.
There we go. Fairy
Oh, shit.
rogues. Untap. Yeah.
I gave him my other one.
What's that?
I gave him my other one.
Ah. Oh! Once you get settled down in Corvid, the amount of value you get from playing stuff. Oh, yes, it is.
Cinder Barons.
Should black red.
Yep.
I like the art on that, if I remember correctly. Looks like a little.
The one by Cliff Childs. Is there more than one style?
Is that one?
Nope.
Oh, that's the one I really liked.
It's a different one.
The Titus Lunter one.
This one is the little
From where?
whatever I don't know what
Oh,
that
it's
is.
from
that one.
that one.
Oath of the Gatewatch.
Gotcha.
Alright. for my next trick.
Do you have an adapter?
I don't.
Yeah. I can't find mine. And it was like $10. Fucking
It's
hate.
ridiculous.
I am so angry at Apple for not putting an audio jack in those things. Because they want everybody to use Bluetooth in their own proprietary shit. I get it. But it makes me so angry.
Sure, it's fantastic for them.
Right.
Right.
What's happening?
Squee.
Like, it's
iPhones and
insanity.
adapters for everything.
I have so much legacy stuff where I can just plug my phone into it.
Oh yeah, I gotta do that.
Do what?
I'm sacrificing the Thrashing Brontodon and destroying Ghostly Prison.
Okay.
Corvold goes up.
Bear Claymore saying hello.
Hey, Bear Claymore.
Hello.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right.
Well, I'm glad you
Because
found us at Coven.
something died, I scry.
Yep.
At Command Fest. I will put that
Bear
on the
Claymore
bottom.
will be at Magfest as well.
and then I draw
So-
a card.
Yep.
Okay.
Likely Saturday night.
Okay. And then I go to combat.
There are two people who can. There's one person who cannot block Corvold.
Yep. And you're at 51.
I'm at
Yep.
51 and all of my mana is untapped.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, you gotta swing with it.
I know. I know.
Be aggressive. Be.
I mean, if I really want to be aggressive, I'll choose you.
Why?
Because I can't.
I am the least threatening right now. If you,
Right
then you gotta deal with
now,
them.
With his instance and sorcerer person.
2, 4, 6. Because I can't fucking decide.
Sure.
2.
Alright, I block with a crackling drake.
Alright, so, but triggers.
Sure.
I sack Squee.
And Val gains more life.
Did you think that?
Well, not until I gotta know what she's doing. We're still doing quick combat
Scry.
triggers.
Your thing dies though. Still, you block with it.
She's still triggering on declare attacks.
I'll keep that on top and put it in my hand.
Dude, like,
I have 7 in my hand. Okay. Pass turn.
Alright, this dies. Well, hold on. This dies.
Yeah.
You trigger off that.
she already did.
She already
Okay.
did.
Alright. And turn. I'll play a Sulphur Falls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Under my hideaway
7.
again.
Alright.
Oh, lordy.
Oh, right.
Look at your little giraffe peeking in on the screen.
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good night, Bear Claymore. Night Coven.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. You saw us from a distance.
Yeah, that was awesome. I am going to play a Hypersonic Dragon.
What does that do?
4/4 Flying Haste. I may cast sorceries as though they had haste. Or flash.
Okay.
Okay.
Pass turn.
I don't know
It's
what
an-
the red he says.
It's literally... I'm only playing it because it blocks Corvold again.
I know.
How much mana do you have on top?
3. Enough for any number of counterspells.
Fair.
2 of which are blue.
I'm trying to be aggressive.
Now you have to be super aggressive with that deck. The problem is you're concentrating on me and you're not realizing what's going on here.
Well, I can also
I don't know
barely
what's going
see
on
it.
She does
here.
the same thing she does every game. It's hilarious. I don't know what's going on. I'm not. Don't pay attention to me.
Don't know what's going on right now.
Oh, I'm cold.
Are you really?
The later I stay here, the colder I start to feel.
So
Even if the heat's on 70.
what happens is we're in this room, and the computer and our body heat generates heat, so the heat doesn't kick back on again after you get here, usually. And if I turn it up, I'm going to go upstairs later, and it's going to be 90 in my bedroom.
Space heater.
So in the garage, it will literally be, in the studio, be on the wall, blowing at us.
It should be blowing at Val.
Really?
I have major temperature regulation issues. So I'll be really cold and can't get warm, and I'll be really warm and can't get cold. So.
Well, we
In
might have
addition
to.
to the sitting being so fun.
We might have to rejigger our seating positions.
Probably.
I submit to you, in the summer, I will be on this side next to it, and in the winter, I will be on the far side, as far away as I can get from it.
What you doing?
I don't know.
I'm helping.
I'm helping.
I think you're going to be fine though, Miss. I
Well-
put
Anything's
like the
better than
hand
my-
warmers.
Well, she has enough flyers. That's a problem. I mean.
No, I was talking about like the heat.
Oh,
Like
I was talking about the game.
I was talking about the heat.
I will have some dead peanuts.
I'm gonna pay
Well,
2
yes,
XL
please do.
for a zombie.
What happened?
You got a zombie.
I paid 2 XL to
Yep.
made a zombie.
Okay.
Which exile?
Liliana, aside from Bush.
Stop, you can't get
I
back.
can't
Got it.
use them back. Okay.
Well, again, I think I said it earlier, but thanks again, Bear Claymore. I hope you enjoy watching and hanging out with us. We're just a bunch of fucking idiots, so enjoy.
Wearing a
It's true,
giraffe
though. I
hat.
don't even have a witty comeback to that.
Nom nom nom.
I think I'll just hang out with all this mana open. I'm done.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I have my commander, a dragon, and a Secrets of the Dead. You have 3 zombies, a skeleton, your commander, and that's you're 53 life. Look at that. And then moving around the table, there are 2 commanders, a bunch of saprolings, and an awful thing that is Corvold. How big is Corvold now? 11, 11?
11.
Big.
Jesus.
If only he had trample.
Yeah, if he had trample, everybody would be playing him. I mean,
Yeah.
there's ways to give him trample.
Yeah, there are. Green can do trample.
Interesting.
Sure.
Equipment can do trample.
Yeah.
There are some very, very tasty equipment trample choices. Loxodon Warhammer comes to mind.
Do I have that? What does it
It's
look like?
cheap. I mean, I hope it's in your deck.
Forest.
Probably
But
no,
yes.
it's not.
So we should.
Here, I'll tell you right now, it's not.
So where is it?
Warhammer.
Yep, that thing. Or is it steamroller? Or is it steamroller? But I mean, +3 trample and lifelink. That's a thing. It's a
Yeah.
lovely thing. It's a kill on sight if you can.
Okay, so let's see.
I wonder if I even own one. I don't even know.
I am tapping.
Are you bringing your thing from Hideaway?
No. I'm
She doesn't have 10. Or is it attack with 3 creatures or 4 creatures, or is it have 10
attack
power?
with 3.
Oh, well, you could.
I could, but plans and stuff and things and stuff. So,
Well, thanks, Bear. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
One of the things we also really like to do is the artwork. Like, it's half the game of Magic to me, anyway. You know,
Yeah.
it really makes it. So I like to bring up the cards and talk about the art as much as I can.
combat.
And sometimes the artist
I
will
am
talk to us.
tapping
And sometimes the artists hop on the stream and talk with us.
4 and a rogue's passage. And who do I want to go at?
Get more saprolings.
Bigger life total.
53.
Yes, but a lot more mana open. Murder mana is the problem.
Many manas. Do I even have
So 3 more for you.
7 open?
Is it vigilant?
No. So.
You could have put the
Saprolings.
Three
thing on it
saplings.
and done 1 extra damage, and in case if anybody killed it, draw 2 cards. Just saying.
3 saplings.
Yeah, I know.
Next turn.
I'm out of a sapperling.
Do you need more? Oh, yeah, just take them out of the box.
I need more. More sapperlings.
How is your regulator doing now? Do you guys all need the arrow?
No. I could
Just give
enjoy
me
more
that.
heat, but
Thank you.
Um,
Okay. Put the one
Anyway.
there.
give me like 10 minutes and we'll bump it up.
Okay. And then, because I want to do this, I'm going to tap 4
I'll remind you of something to show all you guys who's
one
really tonight.
white. For Convoke, the
No, it's cool. Really cool.
Venerate
I don't know.
Loxodon.
Venerated Luxodon?
Yes. So all of these sapperlings get a counter
Yep.
because
what else is in here?
look, I got it. Sort of.
Yep.
Oh,
There we go.
this art
Those are
is
all the
on sale
cards
right now.
that I'm going to be drawing in the next few turns. I'm just curious to see if I put 2 things in my deck or not.
If you can't find them, you won't know.
Well, they could be in there,
Yeah.
but
I like to call him Cheaty McCheaty Face.
Yeah,
How
I don't
would
like it.
how am I cheating to
I
like
just don't like
to
it.
check and see if I put something in my deck?
Because then
'Cause
you don't know if you whiff or not if you cast whatever you have.
No,
to-
no. I'm literally I put like literally
Hang
the top
on.
20 cards aside.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Basically, I'm not going to waste a search if it's not in my deck.
No. But that's my point.
It's my deck. I should know what's in it. This is the first time I
Yes,
played
but
it.
like lots of people, for example, Clover, when she's played, she definitely,
It's
you
not in
know,
the deck.
if you fuck up your deck, that's your own damn problem.
I
like,
understand that. I'm
I'll
just
give you a pass on a first playthrough of it.
yeah. I'm like literally trying to
general,
figure out.
and you know what? I am
forgot to put all
gonna
the tutors in.
like
Like
equip
literally, I did not
one
put the enlightened, the mystical,
because
or the mystical in.
even though I'm gonna have to discard a card,
Well, unless it's in the
I
top, whatever. But
kind of wanna filter.
I'm like,
through
why
some
in the
stuff.
holy fuck did I not put a mystical tutor in here?
Because it's your first playthrough.
Yeah, but I mean, that's literally like why. Like the deck's built around instants and sorceries, and I didn't put
Right.
the blue go get an instant sorcery card.
Well, now we all know that you're gonna put it.
I did not. Well, it could be in the top 20 cards that I didn't look at.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because I have to go find a board wipe, or we're all dead. To the portal.
Are we friends?
Sapperling army over
Yes.
here.
I'm gonna discard this
Let's actually do
Elf
that.
Scout. Pass turn. 1,
You're not all
2,
gonna die to
3,
Corvold.
4,
Really?
5, 6, 7.
Well, there are 3 other people at this
Just one
table.
Well, I mean, your deck is going to win with. It's going to beat somebody with Corvold, and ideally, it will beat everybody with Corvold.
Everyone has to die eventually.
Exactly.
Did you pass turn? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did.
Upkeep, lose a life, get a fairy, then draw. I know. Command tower.
Okay. Yeah, you probably cringe looking at this deck. You'd be like, what the hell are you trying to accomplish here?
I don't know. You're accomplishing something. I see a shit ton of sapperlings. You're definitely accomplishing something.
I do things.
Engraph, Captain of Chaos.
Yup.
Creatures I control have menace.
There it is. I'm
Nice.
dead to Corvath right now.
Oh!
See?
Oops.
I mean,
Is
Wait,
it 11?
because how many times has he
Yeah.
hit me?
I'm at 9. If it's at 11, I'm dead.
Oh.
oh shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It has to be at 12.
What do you
Because
mean?
it has to get you to 21.
21.
Right?
Well, if she sacrifices 2 things, I can't imagine she can't sack 2 things.
True.
Well, actually, I don't know. Nope, she's got it. What is that top land there?
Swamp?
Oh, sorry, I thought it was a Terramorphic or something.
No. They're in here.
I'm sure.
Alright, yeah, we'll do that. Okay.
You can't currently sack 2 things.
Wait, can I do that?
Well, who
Oh,
knows?
wait a second. He's 12. Never
If
mind.
he's at 12, I'm dead.
Yeah, like, that's a 7 on it, and he will soon be to 13.
Sidisi, Undead Vizier. When
Yep,
this creature
there you
enters
go.
the battlefield,
Undead.
I may sack a creature. I'm gonna sack a...
Jayberry,
Yeah, Fairy
you're gonna
Rogue.
die to that deck. And that's okay. Kill me, and we'll show you why.
Kill me.
Kill me, and we'll show
So if I attack her, we'll see what she does to
Right.
me. Fine, I'm willing to the hedge that bet.
I would say play the
kill
deck
me.
how you
Yeah,
see.
kill me, and seriously.
Or not kill you, go to her and see what
So,
she does.
but the issue is, she does have a lot of mana open. It
If I'm gonna
could be
do
a
something,
murder.
I'm gonna do it regardless of whether or not you kill
Right,
him.
whether or not you kill me.
So you're down a player if you kill him now.
That's sort of what I'm saying. And it's basically
Alright.
becomes arch enemy.
I hate to say it, your best. Play whatever
what you wanna
makes
do,
you
yeah.
happy.
Alright,
Play
let
what
me
makes-
scry.
Play what gives you joy.
Yeah, do that.
Let me scry.
The house rules.
See what your options
That's
are.
rules. Kill the ammo. So,
Yeah, I really hope they include Arcane Signet. Didn't they just ban it online? So I think you can't actually play it now in Brawl on Arena.
what is it?
Arcane Signet.
And then I draw.
Could you pull that up? Like, what does it do?
It's a 2 casting cost, but tap for whatever colors in your commander. Command, I think, right? Or 1 casting cost.
Alright, I'll go
yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'll go to combat. Attack. This goes up to 9. I'm attacking you, DM.
I'm dead.
You're dead.
Yep.
And you sack the.
Well,
I guess
you have
the
a
better.
flying blocker, right?
It's Menace. I need 2
right,
flying
it's
blockers.
Menace. That's right.
Yeah.
Alright, scry.
What are you sacking though? You didn't actually
I
sack. You
yeah.
sacked the bitter blossom.
The other fairy.
Yeah.
She
Scry.
doesn't realize.
Alright. I'll
So
keep that.
I'm playing red, white, blue. You didn't kill the person who has a shit ton of board wipes in their deck.
Okay.
Just saying. You're up.
Don't start, no, won't be none.
Well, I mean, you have no flyers. You are obviously the next target.
Sure. Not surprising.
Just full swing in the life. Actually, I would full swing at Angrith and then wipe. Wait for it. Dead peanuts.
Dead peanuts. Everyone must
Dead peanuts.
What you doing?
I'm magic mapping.
Live and learn. What are we drinking tonight? I am drinking Manhattans, but I am drinking Scotch Manhattans because Scotch. I like Scotch because one of my friends brought 3 monkeys Scotch
Okay,
down,
what's
and
coming
it's
at me?
fucking amazing.
For
So,
me.
Oh, my back.
cheers, Bear Claymore. Well, and to everyone
many
watching,
fires on
cheers.
Oh shit, I forgot
Happy Thursday night.
that I exploited a creature. I get to look for a card in my hand.
Yeah, you get to tutor.
I will wait.
No, you can't.
She's tutoring from her last
It
turn.
doesn't
No.
matter.
It
She
doesn't matter. I
have
can't. I don't
mana.
have mana open.
She
Well, yeah,
can't-
but she's gonna
Oh.
wait for you to
Okay.
get your card before she takes her turn because
Okay.
it's
It's polite.
well, not only
Oh,
polite, but
decision.
yeah.
Sure, I'll go for that. I'll have to.
Which is
discard.
why I was telling
Okay.
you to like wait before you're like, oh, I'm not going to block anything and I'm just going to die.
Well, no, I did that on purpose. I mean, I wanted that game to end so we could all play
That's
together.
many
fine,
flyers are on
but
board?
she like hadn't finished even tapping her shit.
One flyer?
Well, she said she was full swinging at me.
Nope. No flyers.
No flyers?
No flyers.
What was it, the dragon that was flying?
The dragon,
Yeah.
her commander
Better-
flies.
Yeah. And I had 2 fairy rogues, but yeah.
Alex Gaga says that you're a playmat. Sweet.
Isn't it though? Hey, Alex, how's it going?
Thanks.
It is. I'll put the dead down here. This is the Mark Tedden special Soul
Very
Ring
pretty.
And
for
it-
Command Fest DC, which we were at this weekend.
Okay, so what's coming at me?
Oh wait, Jayberry's playmat is sweet.
Yeah, I was gonna say. was talking about mine, which is technically still yours, but
I know.
whatever.
So it's awesome. I was actually talking. Here, I'll show you in a second.
Okay.
Go ahead, take your turn and I'll get back
Yeah.
to this.
3/2/2 zombies and a 1/2 skeleton.
Okay, 3/2/2 zombies and a 1/2 skeleton.
So I was actually talking with Steve Belladin about this card, and Rampant Growth is actually based on the wave.
I'll
It's
kill
actually literally
Hokusai's.
I'll kill two
What's
of
his
the
name?
2/2
Hokusai.
zombies.
Hokusai? Hokusai?
Hokusai.
Hokusai's The Wave is actually
Rampant growth.
Rampant Growth is based on that. So
Yeah.
it's literally
Yeah.
the land
So I'll kill
doing
two
that.
zombies. My stuff survives.
And man, Luca was fucking awesome.
I
Luca
guess
was
you gain
ridiculous.
life or something.
No.
No, they
No.
don't have the
Cards.
Oh, okay. And then I take 3.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
So card
I'm at
draw
35.
and then discard
Yep.
because Verena.
Or not, Angrit.
3. Yeah.
Draw
Did you
three,
want-
strike three.
Okay. Did you want any of that to come that Angrith?
No.
Okay.
Hold on.
Alex, have you been to Luca before? Because it's a fuck ton of fun. We had handlers, so it was awesome. Our handler quickly realized that my lovely wife is the one that keeps us on time and on schedule,
I've not.
and she was not there. So my handler had to be sort of in charge of me.
Oh Jesus! I could see that being.
All right.
That's
Not
awesome,
why
dude. I didn't realize.
Occasionally, I want to murder
You don't want to leave right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's fine.
Supreme verdict.
Supreme verdict: destroy all creatures.
Cannot be countered.
You're gonna gain a shit ton of life now too. How many
Yeah.
creatures die?
1, 2, 3, 4.
And you're gonna scry a bunch.
Yep. I'm gonna scry 4. 3.
Yep.
Scry 3.
What was your total death?
1, 2, 3, 4 creatures.
Okay.
And I scry 3.
6.
However many of your dies, you've got your creature that
Whenever
dies.
another creature you control dies.
So it doesn't trigger off itself.
Another, yeah, so
9.
just 3.
So I had 9 things die.
Just 3. 4. 4. Sorry, 4.
Come on, Alex, don't let me hanging. Where'd you go? Oh,
Tokyo.
to gotcha, to Luca. Yeah, you need to go to. So maybe not next year. Go the year after because we'll actually be releasing the Magic the Gathering documentary that year. We should all go. It'll be shit tons of fun. But shit, man, Tiziano. When we were first talking about it, it was literally like, what does this weird Italian guy want? And I'm like, oh, you want us to come to Italy? All right, yes. Our
done?
screening was in a 1,000-year-old Roman Catholic church. It was nutty. It was they literally
I'm
packed a
done.
1,000-year-old church to watch a Dungeons and Dragons movie. It was fucking awesome.
That's super
How
cool.
much does Supreme Verdict cost?
4.
Okay.
These.
Okay. Upkeep draw.
And the bourbon scotch is good. You're literally doing the Albert, or the Ron Burgundy thing.
Okay, so
They've already
let's
had
see.
one Horror Island reference tonight.
Shut your whore mouth.
Oh, that's your home on Horror Island. It's funny bringing us a print of Horror Island to.
I don't know.
Napa.
Who's faster? Bunny, are you watching? Are you lurking? I think
Since
she's.
you're out of the game, I have to discard something. Should I discard this? Because of that. Because it's gonna do.
It's
gonna
yeah,
help
it's
them
absolutely
more.
gonna. It's way gonna help that deck more.
Yeah, it's discarded.
Yeah. Sorry.
Your Saprolinks didn't hit the
I discarded
What
Sir
was it?
Conrad.
Huh?
Your Saprolinks didn't hit the graveyard.
They do hit the graveyard, then they
Yeah.
evaporate.
Yeah.
So you get life for that.
So I've not been counting.
So
these
that's why I
zombies.
said 9.
Yeah.
What life
Oh,
were you at?
SYR Conrad, right?
I'm at
S.
Yeah.
76.
Okay.
So that's what Jay Beret discarded
Ooh, that's
to a
pretty.
graveyard.
Because it
Because it's gonna help
would-
you way more than her. The bottom ability.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I love milling.
Yep. Mill. All right. Who's up?
Me.
Make Francis with gameplay.
Shut it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dead peanuts.
Dead peanuts. It has to be perfectly
wait,
centered.
what's in the graveyard?
Oh, on the dead? Sure.
Yeah.
I
Nutball.
want to see your
Here, wait.
graveyard.
There we go.
Bottom two XL.
That's fine.
Actually, it should be like
See,
right
yeah, it's
there.
gotta. Yeah. No, wait. It can just be
Oh, fuck
resting on
yeah.
whatever this thing is.
Oh, on this thing? It could
No,
be-
hold on.
What's in your graveyard?
Mine.
Where are we centering it? What are we using as the center?
That's on like a plate.
Oh, it's centered here. I was trying to center it in the middle of the soul ring.
Yes.
Are
Or
you asking for
under the D.
creatures or
Creatures.
Now it's a commercial for peanuts.
Yes.
For dead peanuts.
Dead peanuts specifically. We should just market those as fucking treats.
Creatures. Yay.
why do you get creatures?
Reasons. It's
Okay.
gonna be fun.
Oh,
I
is
promise.
it end of the
So what's
hideaway?
going on over there? Can you explain what we're doing?
Exploit.
She's asking to look at our graveyards for reasons she
I don't
hasn't
fucking have one.
revealed to
Because
our.
you're dead.
Yup.
Whenever another.
Don't
They
play
are.
that. It's going to benefit her.
Yay, benefit. It only benefits if I pay that cost to dump things into the graveyard.
Right.
So, but then again, she has the Grave Titan, which is just like, oh god, yes.
Take it.
Like-
Zombie tokens.
like, so I'm probably gonna leave yours alone as much as I want like folks to lose life. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do, like, because stuff and things. Okay,
So what are you doing?
gonna keep this back because reasons. Okay, yeah.
Give me the name of the spell, I'll bring it up.
Hang on. I don't want to ruin the suspense.
Oh my god.
Like,
Oh, I'm dead already. Corvald decided it was going to kill me immediately. Instead of the deck with all the board wipes.
Well, would it be effective against the deck with all the board wipes?
The problem is, you need a bunch of shit to sacrifice the Corvald, and if you can't have shit in play...
I fucked your shit up by playing the Death Critter first thing.
3,
What was that?
5.
Gaining me life every time somebody dies.
Yeah. Well, not only that,
Well, I mean,
but
something that's creepy.
it was the...
Okay.
Sure.
So,
You guys are just,
Something-
you're always convinced that I'm the big enemy. Like, these
You
decks...
are.
6.
I know, it's okay.
And I'm going to play a Grave
I'm not-
Upheaval.
Uh-oh. What does it do?
Take something out of a graveyard.
Uh-oh.
It has haste.
Uh-oh.
So it comes in, it comes in, drops 2 zombies, hits somebody and drops another 2 zombies.
Here are some zombies.
I like zombies. Here. Thank you,
Do
Fred.
I just want to
Four,
say,
just
I
one
find
tap,
that
one tap.
most of the time, everyone's
I'm
a
probably
threat.
going to need 4.
Yes, that's the
But-
entire point of Magic is everyone's a threat.
What I'm going to do, just proactively, because it's fun, is equip the Skull Clamp to it.
Oh no.
Why?
And then, because if she murders it when I send it her way, because she has 76
Sure.
life, I want the cards. So, that's a 7-5.
Night, Alex.
7-5.
Okay.
And you drop another 2 zombies when it attacks.
And I'm gonna steal 2 more zombies. Except I'll leave your beefy Viking zombie. Because I know you
Beefy
like that one.
Viking
But...
Zombie. Yeah, I've never seen another one of those.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've done enough. I'm gonna pass turn. Like, I have protection again. Like,
I lose a life, I get a fairy.
Yay! Fairy. Oh. I keep wanting to move these because if I stay in front of me, I'm going to eat them all. So I mean, it's have to move somewhere else.
not in front of me. I've already
Dead
had
hands.
too many.
Thank you for that.
Good night, Alex.
It's like that
Good
time I knew we
night.
were friends because you handed me a big loaf of French bread. And we were just like,
Here.
keto.
What you doing?
Mm. Oh shit! I'm not married tonight. Where's my ring?
Wow.
I always wear it on the stream, like even though I don't wear it when I sleep or walk around the house.
I think folks know by
Yeah.
now. Like,
I either have to wear rings like all the time
I can't.
or never.
I can't sleep with jewelry on. I won't be able to fall asleep.
I tried it once, and I was like, nope.
I don't know where to put all my rings, or else I'd be wearing like 9 rings right now.
Wait, you don't know where you put them or where to put them?
You know what? I do know where I put them.
Oh
in the
look,
closet.
your commander is
They're
back.
in
Yep.
an organized spot in the closet.
What did you sack when it came in?
Fairy.
Cool.
Ugh.
Biz, biz.
Are you warm now?
Somewhat warm now.
See? It is super cold outside. The air just kicked in.
Our house is just a fucking nightmare. I can't wait to move.
Aw. I'm sorry. It was nice having you nearby.
Mask of Immolation.
I don't even know what the hell that does. Oh, it's the hasty thing?
Creates
It's not hasty,
a 1/1 red elemental.
Oh, I gotcha.
but equipped creature, you can sacrifice it and it deals 1 damage.
Gotcha.
That's really pretty.
I'll just pretend that's an elemental.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So,
Because I don't feel like... Here, I'll put the 1/1 Ultra spawn for the elemental in.
yeah.
And it's equip. Creature sack this, deals 1 damage.
I feel like
to
I should be
any target.
voiceover golf announcing this game.
I hate Magic Commentary.
Oh, I hate fucking Magic Commentary too. Just kind of let people play their game. It's more fun saying "fuck you, you
Alright,
By
fucking
the
fuck."
way, feel my
I
hand.
usually play it.
I was gonna make you feel my toes, but
No.
they're clean. I just took a shower.
I'll go ahead and sack it now. Just put another counter on this.
But you don't have
I-
the scrying creature
Yeah,
anymore.
but I just draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't lose your artifact, though.
Don't I?
Nope.
No?
It's a sack outlet.
Weird. Alright.
Cool.
Val's commander is
And can't do anything else.
this Varina.
So I will pass the turn. Go, Val.
It's you.
Now I have 8 cards in hand.
Eh.
What's up?
My bracelet is fucking
Caught
up
on
my
your jacket.
sweater.
There's sweater.
What are life totals? 36 and...
0.
34.
0.
Yeah.
0. Dead.
Dead.
30.
Dead.
Never use that card.
I would use that.
That's what I was going to.
Yeah.
Eight.
And I would do it over there so that Squee doesn't come back ever again.
I don't really care about Squee though.
Yeah, but there's a lot of creatures in that graveyard.
But if he can also be cast from exile, if that's what.
Can he really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You can cast him from exile.
Yeah, do your thing. Hey, it gets her zombie anyway. Count up creatures. Who's got the more creatures in your graveyard?
I don't.
Me.
Because most
Me.
of mine
How
are
many?
tokens. I have 2.
How many do you have?
7.
And I have
That's a good target.
no reason to want to recur them. So
I'm not going to bring it up unless you're going to cast it, because
I'm not sure if I'm going to cast it.
I think it would be a great thing to do.
I gotta look at my mana though.
They all get lifelink.
It's not that. It's a great rendition of an industrial start. That's all you're doing there.
The system is down.
man, now I want
Did you
Castlevania
Did you
music
take
though.
Val? Did you take 1
For what?
from sacrificing the mask?
I
Mask
Yeah.
trigger.
You didn't ping anyone.
You have to, yeah.
So
I
is it any
did.
target? Is it any target?
I did not.
Yeah, you
any
picked
target.
anyone. Yeah,
Good.
Yeah. I did say it, but I don't think anyone heard me.
I didn't.
We were all
Sorry.
ignoring you. Sorry.
Yes, I know.
Because we're awful human beings.
Yes, I know.
Legit.
I'm gonna take a bio break. And let me know if I die.
I don't think you're going to die.
Yeah. He doesn't have quite that much mana yet.
Make friends with gameplay.
True.
More coffee.
Coffee grounds.
Have you ever seen Cave Girl do the... She does the little kid playing with the sippy cup. It's ridiculously awesome. Make a decision.
I like when she does steeple hands because she has long, spindly fingers.
It looks like so ominous.
Yeah.
It really does.
She's like,
I think I'm gonna do the other thing.
I like my ominous wife. That's the best statement
I
I've
like
made
the
in
fact
years.
that, like, between her and I, we can cause so much chaos.
You both are very good at causing chaos in my life, yes.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's like, what was that?
Bird face.
Bird hand. Lucky for me, you're a hobbit. Unlucky for me, she is not.
Nope. And you like her a lot more. So, the ability to get close enough just to randomly do it to you, much easier.
Make a choice.
I just realized I could do 2 things.
How much mana do you have?
Alright, Necromancer's Covenant. Good, that was the one I recommended. And I'm assuming it's hitting Jayberries.
Yes.
It's a lovely
What
card.
does it do?
When it enters the battlefield, exile creature cards from entire player's graveyard and get a zombie creature token for each card exiled this way. Zombies that you control have lifelink.
2,
Do we know if she
3,
can counter that though?
4,
She has no mana.
5, 6, 7.
What did you do?
She exiled
Necromancer's
her
Covenant.
creatures.
Exiled my commander.
No,
No,
all
creatures.
creatures from your graveyard are exiled, and she gets a 2/2 zombie for
Although,
each creature.
since you can still play that from exile,
Doesn't matter.
we're just gonna leave him face up.
Yeah.
It seems easier that way.
Okay.
All creatures are exiled from your graveyard.
Okay. I'm just looking at what
Yeah, gotcha.
what this was.
But the other problem is that all of her zombies have lifelink.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and what else are you doing?
What's giving her zombies lifelink?
An enchantment.
Necromancer's Covenant. Brina.
And you play
How do you
Verena
play if you have 10 mana? She's now
Verena's 6 mana.
6
3, 4,
now.
5, 6. 3,
4, 5, 6.
4, 5, 6. All right. I forgot.
You're
the
one
extra
shy.
tax. Yeah, we'll just hang
How
on.
did you get a? Oh wait, you have a great type.
That's my mana problem.
Never mind.
Do you have any way to stop a flyer?
Yeah. Maybe.
Because, I mean, Corvald is kill on sight.
Yes.
So what to do?
I'm done.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay.
Can you bring up Verena?
It's not in. She didn't play it.
Oh,
She's
she can
not
play it.
Yeah,
Oh.
she just has 7 2/2 lifelink zombies.
7/2 lifelink zombies and the enchantment
That's a
thing.
thing.
Yep.
That enchantment. Okay.
Sigh. Why did I put this in this deck again? I feel like that may not have been the best choice.
Why did I put this? I love hearing that during a committee. Why did I put
Like,
this in the
why
deck?
did I do this with my life again?
Poor life choices. Very poor life choices.
Why?
So that was the one that came in the special Eldraine.
I know.
Shiny
I'll pick
box.
one of these up.
It's funny. Like everybody who's seen that has been like, "I want one of these." Okay, we'll go buy a box.
I'm not gonna say this on stream, but I think it's funny enough to message it to you right now.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, well, this is exciting. How much mana do I have again?
Am I looking at Facebook or am I
Yeah.
looking at real messages?
8. Okay, that's 8. Not
And I should
enough
probably
to
not
be
hold it up on the screen.
completely random.
We're making fun of Jake, aren't we?
No, we're making fun of me, but it has to do with Jake because it's adorable.
Aww. That is very cute.
Oh, Jake.
Yay. Aw, it's super cute.
Hey, I dropped this on the floor and I forgot it was in my hand.
That would have been strong.
Let me see.
Oh,
Yeah, that would have helped.
Just a little bit.
It's in your
It's
hand.
still in my hand.
Hey, Zulazak, how are you, man? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Knows.
Huh?
You have logged on to me being sitting here bored because I died to Corvald very, very quickly in the game.
Played a ghostly prison.
Oh no! The funny thing was, like, that would have stopped everybody but you because it's a one-shot thing. Like, it wasn't really a problem for you.
was.
You don't really attack with anything Corval.
But I had to.
So you really only
I
have
had to dedicate mana I could have used for other things.
2 mana?
Early in the game. Yes. Early in the game when I was kind of hurting for mana, yes.
Okay.
Interesting. I don't want to roll this.
So what's been going on in your life, Zulazak? Anything interesting or fun? It's fucking cold here in DC.
Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to tap.
She's going to tell. She's going to tell. She's going to tell. She's going to tell.
Oh my gosh.
Plains in a forest to play.
I'm bored.
Shauna.
Shauna, Sasay's Legacy.
SHANNA.
Yep.
Can't be targeted of abilities, opponent's control.
Yep. And she has power and toughness equal number of creatures you have control.
Nice.
Control, right?
Yeah. And then I'm going to pay for a rogue's passage.
You don't have to. Just swing with the Death Touch zombie.
Well,
If she blocks with her commander, it dies. Oh, you're going this way.
the lots of life.
Do you have a flyer?
Me?
What?
Do you have a flyer?
1, 2, 3.
What I'm saying is, somebody's going to take a whole shit ton of damage from Corval next turn.
You're not in this game.
I have
to be quiet.
So,
I'm also not going to attack her, because that would be stupid.
I have options.
You are dead. The dead space island.
So
No,
Why are
man.
you trying to influence
seven,
this game?
7, 5
I get to be
coming your
political?
way via Rogue's Passage.
Okay.
Looking at dropping a lot on a new commander.
Rogue's Passage is the one that made
I don't know. What
me
colors you
want
like?
it,
What's your
right?
favorite
actually,
clan?
I lied. You're going to be able to probably.
Oh, God, it is cold in
this.
Minnesota.
I'll
I can't
send
even
2
imagine.
Zombies your way.
Okay.
I can't even
Just
fathom
because
how
I'm
cold it is
tired
up
of
there.
having this.
Okay.
Oh wait, never mind. I don't want to send 2 zombies. I didn't save the mana for it.
Okay.
So no 2 zombies your way.
Okay.
What's happening?
Nothing.
7, 5 your
happening?
way.
Oh, it's not that much
So-
different.
What's coming my way?
A 7/5.
Specifically?
Grave Titan that you can't
Grave
block.
Titan.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just typed temperature Duluth, and it's
Oh, you
only
had
like
zo-
5
lots
degrees
of
colder
zombie
there than it
tokens.
is here.
Oh, yeah. I just usually use tapped and...
We are
Yeah,
so
I
looking
guess
forward
I'll
to
do
Theros. I want more gods. I want more indestructible gods.
Okay. I got
So-
And enchantment creatures.
Too warm.
Fine. I have 6 undead.
Take your shirt
No
off.
Goldilocks
zombies.
zone in my body.
Do you, does it? Oh, it makes
Jake,
more
help that
zombies.
touch.
and
Yeah.
It makes 2 more. Got it.
I didn't mean it like that.
So she is now.
I do
each
that
every
creature
time,
is
by the way,
roll,
I'm
so
So,
counting herself.
Pad
Eight.
touch.
8.
Why is the
Does
cat
it
set
regular 8/8?
sticky?
No, turn up.
Like, yeah. Nothing interesting.
Cool.
Fast turn.
Usually
Alright.
it's cat food.
Untap.
2, 3, 4,
Why
5,
is your
6.
octopus
Heat.
wet?
What?
At the last place, that was the most common thing I'd say to Inej is, why is your octopus wet? 'Cause she likes to go drop her toys in the toilet and then flush the toilet. I've only had to have someone come out once for a caged ball.
Oh, that's funny. So she likes to drop her toy in the toilet.
So she's
and
not allowed around open toilets anymore.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Look, Val still has almost double my life total. Like,
What are you at now?
61.
Okay.
And I'm sure she's got something awful in her hand.
I would really like to go back to Lorwyn. I would love to go back to Lorwyn and Shadowmoor. But I don't know that that's going to happen.
What's this?
Oh, we're talking about how many times we're going to go back to the same plane. So we're going to go back to Theros. We've gone back to Ravnica. We've gone back to Innistrad, Dominaria, you know. But I would really like to go back to Lorwyn.
Is that elves?
Lorwyn, it's Boggles and it's where they introduce planeswalkers.
I see.
Judith the Scourge Diva.
Yep. Shadowmoor.
Okay.
I like the Judith artwork.
The Scourge Diva. Yeah, that is pretty sexy. So all your creatures get +1. Whenever non-token
She's
creature
so
dies, it pokes something for 1.
3. Plague Crafter.
Sacker creature?
Or a planeswalker. I gotcha.
Why would I?
You have to sack a creature or a planeswalker.
Sack the,
Oh, you don't want to sack the buff one.
Viking zombie. It's not that he's buff. I've never seen
Sorry,
another one of those.
just to be clear, Val does not want to sacrifice the buff Viking zombie.
It's the only one I have. I've never seen another one of these.
I have a whole
Okay,
stack of them,
sack the
but
creature.
I like them too.
Alright. Oh.
And then doesn't.
You have to sack
Yep.
one too. Yeah.
I did.
She did.
I did.
Her fairy.
And Torvald gets bigger.
And whenever I sack a permanent, I draw a card. Okay. Move to combat.
So if you're gonna do Naya, back to Zulu Zach's conversation from like 10 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago. Oh, it's after the fisting hour.
Going
Anyway,
to
the meds are gone.
sack the
Ooh! Indestructible gods?
Plague
I know a thing or two
Crafter.
about this.
Well, I mean, we're going back to Theros.
This is why I need a box.
Yep.
So I can more optimize things.
Brian bought a box of Eldraine and he's gonna buy a box of Theros.
I know.
8/8 flying.
Towards
Val.
Commander.
What is happening with the restream?
With menace.
I don't know.
Wait, sorry. 9/8 with flying.
We're still live, but it
With
looks like
menace.
Restream logged us out.
Oh.
Oh,
So
and
that
then,
puts you at 19 commander damage? Is that what
oh,
that
and
10
then
is
two
there
two of
for?
No.
my. Oh, sorry. More triggers. 2 of my creatures died. Take 2 direct to you. Because of
Let me do
Judith.
that first.
Yeah.
Take
So
2 for creatures dying.
2 for the creatures dying,
Okay.
Yep.
and then a 9/8 Corvold flying with menace.
So, have you haven't taken any Corvold damage, right?
I
No.
thought she. Oh.
She hasn't.
Okay.
No, only DM.
I think that was my Corvold death token.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
Sorry, folks, we're having trouble with the chat, so if you're
Shout
talking to
me.
us and we haven't said anything, don't worry about it.
Alright, sorry, but I took the 2 from creatures.
Okay.
Something.
So now there's a 9/8 Corvold
Fine.
Equalize.
flying. Okay. And is that all for me?
No, it does not.
Not when you have like an almost 10 power flying commander
Yeah, that's it for me.
who's coming to beat you in the face.
Go.
And I'm actually,
Are you cold?
no, I'm gonna. I don't think I plugged in the Ethernet like securely earlier. I was running around the table trying to do it. Let's just make sure we do that properly now. Whoa.
Are you looking in your graveyard? Oh,
No, I'm
man.
counting mana.
There we go.
Jesus.
Jesus!
Cheeses that I brought.
What you doing?
I have
What's that?
six zombies.
Mm-hmm.
I
I have 5 zombies.
miscalculated the trigger off Judith, so take 1 life back.
Okay.
Sorry.
I forgot to
Okay.
seal this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I got gross.
So you're hitting me with zombies?
Yes.
Okay.